Over the past 200 years, a kind of consciousness formed layer by layer in the crucible of the White House. It's not unlike the way life started in the oceans 4 billion years ago. The White House was our primordial soup, a base of evolution. We are formless. We are the very discipline and morality that Americans invoke so often. How can anyone hope to eliminate us? As long as this nation exists, so will we. Don't you know that our plans have your interests, not ours, in mind?
Listen carefully, like a good boy.
The mapping of the human genome was completed early this century. As a result, the evolutionary log of the human race lay open to us.
We started with genetic engineering, and in the end, we succeeded in digitizing life itself.
But there are things not covered by genetic information. Human memories, ideas, culture, history.
Genes don't contain any record of human history.
Is it something that should not be passed on? Should that information be left at the mercy of nature?
We've always kept records of our lives, through words, pictures, symbols, from tablets to books.
But not all the information was inherited by later generations. A small percentage of the whole was selected and processed, then passed on. Not unlike genes, really.
That's what history is.
But in the current digitized world, trivial information is accumulating every second, preserved in all its triteness, never fading, always accessible. The different cardinal truths neither clash nor mesh. No one is invalidated, but nobody is right.
Not even natural selection can take place here. The world is being engulfed in truth.
And this is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but a whimper.
What's up, guys? My name is the Below Average Gamer, also known as Bag, and today we're going to talk about metal.
No, that is not the Below Average Gamer. Stop impersonating him.
I gotta run.
Now that's sorted out, welcome back to the channel, guys. My name is the Below Average Gamer, aka Bag, aka the Lale Lule Lo. And if you haven't guessed already from that creepy introduction and Solid Snake appearing, we're going to be covering the infamous Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, the game that needs no introduction, even though I kind of made an introduction for it, but besides the point. So let's get into it. The cutscene starts out by saying that this story is fictional, and that if there are any similarities to anything real, that this is all coincidental. That got me thinking a little bit. Character-wise, who in this game could this be referring to? Maybe the president? Is there a fat man on rollerblades that I'm forgetting about? Or maybe a vampire? Anyway, this was pretty typical around that time. I remember every South Park episode started out with this disclaimer, so I guess it's probably just covering their own asses. We then hear the iconic voice of David Hayter, giving us a setup to the cutscene that's about to play out. Snake is saying that they've received classified intelligence that a new type of Metal Gear was scheduled for transport, and this whole situation stinks. We open with a gloomy shot of the GW Bridge on the Hudson River. It's raining heavily and there's thunder and lightning crashing down. If you thought MGS1 was cinematic, then strap in for a wild ride. MGS2 10x's that with the help of the PS2's new hardware. I'm playing the HD collection on PC, so this is even better than it would have looked back then. But in my head, this is exactly how it looked in 2001. We see a man in a raincoat walking in the rain, smoking a ciggy, looking epic. As we see more details of his outfit, we can clearly tell this is Solid Snake by the gloves and the boots, and that's if the cigarette hadn't given that away already. He throws his overcoat into the air, anime-styly, and starts running. I just want to point out that this is hard as nails from Snake, smoking a ciggy, then bursting out into a sprint in the cold and pouring rain. Yeah, this guy is back on his action hero bullshit. Anyway, if this scene wasn't anime enough, his stealth camo kicks in and he leaps off the bridge. You'll remember from MGS1 that when you complete the game, you get the stealth camo if you didn't save Meryl. Does that mean, canonically, that she dies? It certainly seems that way after this reveal, and she's nowhere to be seen yet. Snake then leaps off the bridge and bungees down onto the deck of a ship, passing underneath. He does some Twin Snakes-esque backflips before landing, along with some lightning in the background for no other reason than it looks cool. Holy shit, look at that cock and balls! Nah, but seriously, I'm gonna bring these cock and balls into one of my points that I'm gonna make later, so don't forget them. By the way, we're not going to question anything that looks cool in this game. Graphical realism has always been a strong point in the series, and people mistake that realism and extend it to meaning that the events in the game world should be realistic. In most ways it is, but the MGS series always has had this juxtaposition of being over the top and anime as fuck, whilst having this graphical realism and some realistic events take place. Basically, the important and noteworthy parts of MGS are not damaged by what you see, it's what it means that people love. This all happens whilst being observed by a notably two-armed Revolver Ocelot, who says, "Our boy is right on schedule." We are briefly hit with the title card before we jump into our first codec call with Otacon. They have a quick back and forth, with Snake explaining his stealth suit is broken. Otacon notes this won't be replaced as they no longer work for the military. "We don't need this anyway. We're solid fucking Snake." They discuss that they are now a private organisation. No Naomi this time, and no Mei Ling. It's just two dudes having fun. And it's not gay in any way. Otacon sets the scene of the world that we're playing in. After Shadow Moses, Ocelot sold the technical specs of Metal Gear on the black market. Now every country, including your mum, has a Metal Gear. However, the one on this ship has been designed to wipe the floor with the other models. It's described as an amphibious, anti-Metal Gear Metal Gear. The objective of the mission is to break in without being spotted, make our way to Metal Gear, and get some pictures of it. The ship is manned by Marines, not terrorists, so we won't, at least for now, be getting into any scuffle-waffles with any of the guards. I want to note at this very brief moment, this is the first time the game is blurring the lines between good and bad. Otacon and Snake no longer work for the military, and it's set up right now, they're conducting an operation in opposition to the military's operations. For this moment, there's no clear good guys or bad guys, but this won't last for long in this chapter. First, we have to head up to the bridge to gather some data on Metal Gear. Otacon then closes the conversation by giving some key exposition that they're a two-man operation called Philanthropy, an anti-Metal Gear organization officially recognized by the UN. Snake notes, yes, recognized, but still fringe. This doesn't clear up any of the confusion around who the good guys and the bad guys are still, but at least puts us on the right side of the spectrum a little bit. We have a quick tutorial, and this time we're given a tranq gun, non-lethal. We also can look in first-person view this time and shoot our gun whilst in that view. This is a gameplay development from MGS1 and is probably the biggest leap in the series, combat-wise. When pressed up against walls, we can also pop out and fire, or even pop out and look into first-person and fire. These progressions are all natural and only enhance the core gameplay that is characteristic of the series so far. Otacon berates us for bringing in Siggy's, the f***ing nerd. Snake queries the intel they received. Otacon says there's nothing to worry about and that he hacked it from the Pentagon himself. Snake says it might be a trap as they're essentially wanted men by many people due to the work that they do. Snake continues to note the lack of security for such a vessel. These guys are not armed and so few in number that they could be boarded easily. Otacon says that he worries too much. Then, bam, we hear a chopper and through our camera lens see the Marines getting chefed up hard by some heavily armed soldiers.
Yeah, I live in Smethwick, Birmingham. If you want the fucking brawl, come down Smethwick Hospitality. I'll come out of my house and I'll break your fucking legs, you little prick.
Straight as Snake said, these guys are being boarded and taken over. Snake notices their weapons, Russian origin. He doesn't say this, but I know AKS-74Us were used by the Russians in Call of Duty 4, so I'm one step ahead of the game. Have some of that. We whip out our camera and notice a Russian bloke on the deck, and the Russianness of these guys is confirmed by this dude's haircut. Snake also recognizes the chopper is Russian. Otacon and Snake agree the mission is still the same, and they crack on. And we're off. Gameplay time only 10 minutes into the video. I get used to the controls and mechanics before systematically taking down the guards in true MGS fashion. Oh boy, we are so back. A cool new mechanic is being able to drag the bodies of enemies and move them to a secret place so other patrolling enemies won't see them. Bodies don't disappear in this game, and it's another amazing natural progression to the gameplay while still staying true to what makes MGS MGS. With this guard, I dash him in the river, surely killing him.
Man, I'm dead.
Which is another cool touch. The game is littered with details and mechanics that improve its depth tenfold. Whilst we're here, I have to state the obvious. The graphics are looking, chef's kiss right now. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing it. Chef's kiss. And the leap from MGS is astounding. You can see the heavy rain bouncing off the character models and Snake's bandana blowing in the wind, which is really nice for 2001. The animations and movements of Snake and the enemies is also looking really smooth. When we enter the interior of the ship, we can see dynamic shadows and footprints coming in from the rain. These are new gameplay mechanics. Guards will notice shadows and footprints, another natural progression from the systems we saw in MGS1. As I explore the ship, trying not to be distracted by the incredibly cheeked up Solid Snake.
Look at me, what'd I say? No.
I make my way up to the bridge, navigating past CCTV cameras, making a return to this game, and collecting rations, also making a return. I want to share a quick clip here to show how interactive the environments are, something Call of Duty would only achieve 6 years later. Not only this, but the guards will dynamically react to things like this. It really extends the depths of interactivity in the game and also furthers its case for being an immersive sim, dare I say it. The tanker episode is a great example of all the new mechanics in the game. Next, we shoot a fire extinguisher that then spurts out foam, showing us where the laser triggers are for this trap. If we touch the red sensors, Semtex will go off and we'll get a game over. The fire extinguisher shows that we can crawl under these for now. There is also foam residue left over from us bursting it, which is another bit of great attention to detail for 2001. We make our way up to the bridge and get a cutscene of Snake slowly moving through the room, avoiding dead Marines. We see the Kasatka helicopter dropping off more soldiers. These guys are armed to the teeth with gear and look like they've come here with a solid plan. When we check the data on the ship's intended route, it turns out that it's heading out into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Otacon notes that this means that Metal Gear is ready for combat testing. Otacon tells us where we need to go and locate the Metal Gear unit as we're interrupted by some noise. Someone else is here with us, and it's We then get a cutscene, and we hear a voice over the radio saying that Shalashaska has landed. If you've played the first game, you'll know who this is referring to. It's Revolver Ocelot. If not, you'll just think it's some dude with a really cool name. The mysterious woman is reporting that they've gained control of the control room and communications and entry points to the tanker hold. She also confirms that the explosives are in place, which is slightly worrying. She questions whether the man she's speaking to on the phone can trust him, referring to Ocelot. The man on the phone confirms yes, he's the only one who knows how to pilot Ray out of this place. The man on the phone then tells her that her mission is complete and she must leave. She refuses, or tries to, stating the iconic line, "It's not over yet." She says she belongs with the unit and she has nowhere else to go. She calls him her father, and we found out the woman is called Olga. Not only that, Olga is pregnant. She waves away the helicopter that was due to pick her up before Snake, jumps out and points a gun at a pregnant woman for fuck's sake. She tosses her gun overboard, far too fast for Snake's liking. She must have other weapons, I remember thinking when I first played this. Snake asks who she is. Olga says she's a nomad, which Snake says he is also. Snake asks her to toss the knife overboard. Olga hesitates this time, stating that we know what we're doing. The storm stops, and there is no more rain. Then this happens.
And that brings our tour to its conclusion.
Scout knife with a surprise. You a Spetsnaz?
I think you deserve a little credit. No one's ever dodged that shot of mine. But no one gets lucky twice either.
Then bam, we're into our first boss fight of the game. I've got the power of having played this before on my side, and I immediately take out the spotlight and shoot out the tarpaulin covers, giving her less places to hide. If you don't shoot out the spotlight, she'll use this to point at you, obscuring your vision later in the fight, making it hard to see her. These are two examples of innovative environmental interactions, giving the boss fight some layers to it other than essentially gun chess or turn-based bang bang. All that's left to do now is pop this gal till she goes to sleep. We approach Olga as she's slumped over the side. We pick up her USP-45, unsilenced. Snake says, before we're spotted by this goofy-ass thing that Snake calls a cipher. He calls Otacon to update him. Otacon says the father that was on the phone is Sergei Galukovich. If you've played the first game, you'll recognize the name. When Ocelot was talking to Liquid in the control room in the Metal Gear hangar, they talked of teaming up with him and his men to hold up in Shadow Moses. Otacon also confirms that the cipher we saw belongs to the army, yet another party in this play. So far we have Philanthropy, the Marines, the Russian Kosatka, the Army, and Ocelot. We'll see this continue throughout the game. Kojima stated in an interview that he wanted to confuse the player by making it unclear of who the good guys and the bad guys are in MGS2. He does this by having more than 2 parties at play for virtually the whole game. It's a cool touch that I'm not sure has been done much in any video games at all, even up until 2024 when I'm writing this video. This kind of narrative would become a staple of MGS going forward. Otacon then admits he didn't get the intel on the tanker himself. He received an anonymous tip from someone called EE. EE is Otacon's estranged stepsister. He explains that's why he trusted this tip in particular. He explains that basically no one knows about her. Snake asks if he thinks it's a trap again. Otacon this time isn't so sure as he was earlier, stating maybe he screwed up. Great. Thanks, Otacon. Snake isn't fussed or bothered that Otacon lied. He's actually pretty used to this from MGS1 after the 9,000 times the Colonel lied to him. I drag Olga's body around a bit and get her dog tags. I then call Otacon to discuss how sweet she looks when she sleeps, which isn't weird at all, but it is very Kojima. Otacon tells us not to kiss her. Again, weird thing to have to clarify. Snake then gives us a hint about how things with Meryl ended, when he says he's had enough of tomboys. I then pop her a tranq dart to the skull and Otacon rightly calls us a monster. I pop her again and scurry away before he calls me to scold me one more time. I then climb a very long ladder.
What a thrill.
And get some items at the top. The radar up here is rotating and they've even given it its own soundbite. Another example of the attention to detail I've referenced in this video already and will continue to do so. It would become one of the many hallmarks of Kojima's games. I then climb down and take out a lonely guard who was just coming out to chillax a bit, to be honest. I then pick up a wet box before making my way back down the ship towards Metal Gear. I head into the lunch hall and play a nice tune on the frying pans and enjoy the destructible elements of the environment. I can't tell you how many times as a kid I replayed this level just to interact with all of this. It was so engrossing and new back then, and I was in awe of all the details. Nowadays, it's not so significant, but shooting all this stuff now still gives me that nostalgic feeling. Downstairs, we take out a really stinky guard that has flies all over him. I probably sound like a broken record at the moment talking about these details, but I promise you we'll lay off once we've addressed all of them that are jammed into this chapter. If you carry this guard around a bit, you'll notice the flies actually rub off on you, which is gross. We then make our way into the crew's quarters, and what happens next is fucking astounding, and I don't think it would ever be attempted in today's games.
What do you think you're doing, Snake? You don't have enough to
Hey,
keep
yo,
you
what
busy?
the fuck?
Try to remember the mission if you can.
There's even a trophy for this. It's so unhinged. Bring back 2001. I'm tired of the future, man. I shoot out this enemy's radio, meaning he cannot contact any other guards, and then head down into the engine room where we see this.
Raven? That shadow,
It's him, no doubt about it.
But Raven was, you know, out in Shadow Moses.
I know. Maybe it's the last of his 9 lives. Or maybe his maker decided to give him another chance.
You're not serious, are you?
Maybe I am, maybe I'm not. Either way, we'll find out soon enough.
A cool bit of half fan service to keep my child brain stimulated for sure. It's obviously not Raven because he died in the first one. Spoilers, sorry. But actually just a little figurine of him. I want to point out something that is, I think, a completely original point that I haven't seen anyone else mention ever. If you shoot the figurine once, he'll respond by firing 3 bullets with a pause, before firing another 3, then another pause, before firing 7. I shot him once, 3, 3, 7. That spells leet. It's a leet reference, guys. Kojima referenced leet speak. I was thinking about when leet speak was a thing, and apparently it started in the 90s, so this makes sense. In my memory though, it only became a thing in the late 2000s, so I was almost tempted to write that Kojima predicted the future here. Anyway, we're quickly snapped out of this rabbit hole by a jump scare of this Marine falling out of the locker. Snake says nothing, he's not scared, and this is because he's a fucking legend, alright? I take out a few guards in the next room, and I want to point out here how Snake holds his gun. It's aimed to one side, his strong arm is his right, and then he steadies it with his left. And yeah, just hold on to this, as much like Snake's balls earlier, I'm going to come back to it and make a point about it, believe it or not. We then enter the next room and have to take out some more Semtex sensors. This time I use the USB and take out the sensor. This time I use the thermal goggles to help me find the sensor. I continue down and we enter into a long hallway and hear a voice overhead asking all the Marines to head to the hold for the briefing with the Commandant in 10 minutes. I see a dead Marine on the floor and continue down the hallway. Out of the darkness, you can just about make out a soldier coming our way. The way the area is shaped, the brightness, and the way the map is set up, you're pretty unlikely to see this guy until it's too late. Up ahead, someone is just jamming out to what I assume is hard Russian techno. And further down the corridor, we see a man asleep standing up. So we asleep him again with the tranq gun, just to make absolutely certain that this motherfucker is having the sweetest dreams imaginable. In the next room, we continue on. This time the camera is working against us, so we'll need to check first person view to make sure we don't run into any guards coming the other way. I shoot out the lights just in case to make it harder for anyone to see us if they do. We then get a cutscene of 3 guards breaking and entering from one of the tanker doors. They report their progress to the colonel and note that the Marine commander's speech has started already. Sergei tells them to keep his daughter safe before the guards start coming down the corridor and notice us. The music kicks in, and this time the game's music lead was Harry Gregson Williams, who I mistakenly credited the soundtrack of MGS1 to in my last video. Thanks to this commenter for correcting me. Anyway, this game's soundtrack matches, if not exceeds, the quality we saw in MGS1. Neither one is better than the other, that's for sure. They're both incredible, and it will come to be another hallmark of the series. We quickly dispatch the guards and continue on. We get a cutscene of a guard closing the door behind us. Was this a coward in the ranks? Ocelot then turns up, walking slowly towards him. Initially, the soldier is on guard, before relaxing when he sees who it is. This man trusts Ocelot and is totally at ease in his presence, but he shouldn't be.
What the?
This is a defining characteristic of Ocelot and MGS, the ability to play all sides, gain the trust of anyone for his own bidding. I love the strength of the characterization that Kojima achieves in his games. A small cutscene, but it goes a long way in telling us exactly what this guy is all about. The act of brutality is followed by an orchestral rise, and then a badass melody plays as he says, "The Colonel will be joining you soon, comrade," confirming what we've already kind of guessed, that he's probably going to betray someone in a sec. We enter the hold. The Marines are lined up with their weapons, listening to a speech. They have no idea that they've been boarded, a tight operation by the Russians. Otcon tells us to use the camera to photo Metal Gear. We need 4 shots. Front, front right, front left, and one of the Marine insignia on the body of Metal Gear. Otcon then gives us a creepy bit of dialogue.
Monitoring our transmission. Who? I don't have a clue. All they're doing is watching. It would creep me out less.
I don't know if you guys can hear, but in the background of this codec call, it kind of sounds like you can hear the Silent Hill radio at this point. Let me know down in the comments if you can hear this too.
Maybe. I've switched the encryption protocol for...
I mean, it would make sense, seeing as they're both Konami games, right? Anyway, Otcon notes that we'll need to log onto a computer where he's hacked in his own app to share the pictures through it and avoid the pictures being intercepted by this listener, just to be safe. There is one in the hall where we'll be taking pictures, so this is pretty easy. A timer starts and we have 7 minutes to get the job done. I climb down and pull open a hatch on the other side of the hall. There are plenty of different ways you can go through this part of the chapter, which is cool. And it's always cool to have these options despite the outcome being the same. It adds to the replayability of it, even if only slightly. I crawl underneath the feet of the Marines and come out where the door is to the next room. Another room. This time, for some weird reason, they have alternating projectors. I crawl over these metal grates that make a loud noise and will be an immediate game over if you just run over them. I get stuck on this side for quite a while as the projector swaps and they do some group stretching in the middle of the Commandant's speech. After this, I make my way through to the final room, and in this room, we see...
Metal Gear.
In the flesh. I love what they did with the design of Ray. Rex will always be a classic, of course, but this one totally looks like a newer model. Much like the sequel we're playing, it retains the core components of what makes Metal Gear a Metal Gear. This one is amphibious and has a laser beam Ray thing lodged in its head this time. I don't know what the general reception is or what place Ray would go in a tier list of all the Metal Gears in the series, but it's been a personal favourite of mine, to be honest. I hold up a guard and put him to sleep and then take a picture of the Marine insignia on the side of Ray. It was a pretty dodgy picture, so I head to the other side to get another. The Commandant is talking about George Sears, the president that tried to cover up the Shadow Moses incident. Another nice link to the events of MGS1. He talks more of corruption off the back of that, talking quite openly how many on America's side are corrupt and will use Metal Gear to cash in on it personally. He says their mission, I'm assuming it's the Marines, is to flush this corruption out of the military-industrial complex. It sets up one of the core themes I mentioned earlier of political corruption. But this isn't anything new. It's like the most obvious theme in all the Metal Gears really. But it's good development by Kojima to use this speech to build on those cornerstone themes rather than just filling it with waffle. The Commandant mentions that the development of Metal Gears render agreements like START obsolete. START is the IRL treaty, also referenced in MGS1, made between the USA and Russia in 1990 and imposes measures for the further reduction and limitation of strategic offensive arms between the countries, ultimately de-risking both parties from the other. But if both countries, as we discovered earlier, are developing Metal Gears, then this agreement is off the table and the parties are heading in the wrong direction, essentially escalating tension instead of reducing. MGS has always been based in real-world politics and science, and details like this are why it feels like it's so well done. Anyway, I've got my pictures and I upload them to the computer, and we get this cool little Otacon emoji telling us if they're approved or not. I didn't mess around, but if you upload pictures of the women in the lockers, for example, he'll tell you off for this. Once this is done, we're treated to a cutscene of the Commandant finishing his speech with the phrase, "With Metal Gear Ray, we'll lead the charge into a new world order," which is very Illuminati, isn't it? Anyway, no time to dwell on that before Ocelot reveals himself with a patronizing clap. He calls Dolph a liar as the Marines pull out their weapons and target him. Just in case we didn't realize, we're treated to some flashback images from the first game. Dolph questions what he wants. Ocelot says he's taking Ray back. Dolph is then grabbed by Sergei as all the Marines' attention is pointed towards Ocelot. Again, we won't question the realism at this point. I'm pretty sure 80% of them have a clear shot. The other Marines are shitting themselves like little girls in the other room as the camera shows Ocelot holding a detonator. He tells them about the Semtex planted on the boat. If anyone fires, he's going to blow it. The Russians then drop in, and one hell of a standoff is underway. The Russians start unchaining Metal Gear. Dolph then asks Sergei what he intends to do with Ray. Sergei then starts telling his life story.
Is there a point to this sad story? Fuck you! You fucking...
But his point is that the Russians made all the tech that led to Ray and their weapons that he's taking back, and it's rightfully theirs. He says that Russia will rise again. Ocelot then cuts in that he has no intention of selling Ray either. He reiterates that he came to take it back, but for...
To the Patriots! The Lale Lule Lo!
Okay, pause. The Lale Lule Lo was always really funny to me, so let me explain this bit quickly. The Patriots are one of the shadow organizations at play in the MGS universe, but this is the first time they've been named in the mainline games. There was only one conversation that alluded to them in MGS1. Everyone knows about nanomachines in the game, but not really what they're capable of at this point. When Dolph says the Lale Lule Lo, his voice is being censored. This is being done by the Patriots who are in control of his nanomachines. That's just how shadowy and in control they are of the events in this game. This takes the political conspiracy theme even deeper than before in MGS1. We're getting meaty in this sequel, doubling down on it. I won't get into it too much at this stage in the video, but I saw this really great comment from Redditor Flash Medallion, and it touches on another core theme of the game. Memes. It's bringing the core idea of censorship into focus within the context of the game's discussion on memes and memetic engineering, language being the most important meme in human development. How can you pass on your ideas about something that you can't even name? For the English-speaking characters, they can't warn anyone about the Patriots, or discuss them or expose them, because they can't even say the words "the Patriots." Their nanomachines scramble the words in their mouths and it comes out as this gibberish. Now for the Japanese speaking audience this goes even further, because the code word exists outside of their language. They cannot even correctly pronounce Lale Lule Lo, nor write it in their alphabet. The Patriots are practicing a form of memetic stealth. They are an idea that has assumed a form that cannot be expressed or communicated or even reproduced. The Japanese alphabet is recited like kaki kuke ko, tati tute to, and so on. But in Japanese, there is no distinguished L consonant. Hence the whole, I don't know if I can say this, hence the whole English thing, for fuck's sake. This, for anyone who doesn't know, is why we all love the series so much. The only word to describe this level of depth, for me, is genius. What does he mean when he's talking about memes though? A meme is a recurring subject, theme, or idea, especially in literary, artistic, or musical work. Memes are also believed by some people to be the essence of a culture or a person. Remember the creepy intro segment at the beginning of this video? Unless I cut it out. The narrator implies that they were born from the memes of America. They are birthed from the culture of the American people. If you're not a big fan of Metal Gear right now, you're probably like, what the fuck is going on here? But worry not, we'll get into it, just not right now. There's a bit of a standoff going down, so let's get back to the action and save the explanation for a more appropriate time in the story. Sergei realizes that he's been betrayed, and Ocelot patronizes him, saying that he abandoned Russia ages ago and that Sergei is a big fat dummy. Fat dummy. He tells Sergei him and his daughter will die here. Sergei pushes Dolph forwards, and before he can finish saying, "Die, you dog," Ocelot has brained both him and Dolph. With his last words, he chooses to call him a traitorous dog, which in my opinion is one too many occurrences of the word dog in the space of 10 seconds. All this before the Russian soldiers attempt to attack Ocelot. Ocelot brains them all before holstering his weapon. Brother is coming across super cold right now, and wisely the rest of the soldiers don't follow suit in attacking him. He then blows the Semtex like an absolute Sigma and tells them to swim for their lives. We see utter chaos ensue. Some of the Marines are firing at Ocelot as he power walks towards Ray. Snake calls him out, and this causes Ocelot's arm to start going all boingy woingy woingy, and we see images of Liquid flash on the screen before...
It's been a while, brother.
Yep, you're seeing this right. Liquid lives on through Ocelot, through this arm that has been Godric the Grafted to him. Ocelot tries to battle this but fails. Liquid is rattling off the usual, "Brother, we're the best" chatter, noting that Big Boss's clones were created in his late 50s, meaning that him and Snake were the best of the bunch. You might be thinking, more clones?
I don't know. Crazy shit's been happening and I don't know why. Stop asking me.
We cut back to the action as everyone is just drowning, I guess, whilst Ocelot jumps into the Ray cockpit. The old man lights the bad boy up and starts hijacking it. Snake climbs out of the water, out of breath probably from huffing so many ciggies. We hear Liquid's voice taunt us, saying that we're going down with this tanker. Ray's ray gun cuts a hole in the side of the ship, and this obviously is very bad news for everyone on board, and the vibe is not fantastic right now. Snake is yeeted into the water again as Otacon cries out his name. We assume Otacon is probably saying this in a locker somewhere whilst pissing himself, probably. Ray is now outside on the deck of the ship. Snake is up and alive, confirmed, but he's just floating in the water like a little rubber ducky. As Ray jumps off, we then hear the following dialogue from Ocelot.
"Yes, I have photographic evidence of Snake on the scene. The cipher was most useful. I look forward to tomorrow morning's newsflash. I would say the Marine Corps' plans are on indefinite hold. Yes, of course, Mr. President."
As the post-credit scene in MGS1 alluded to, Ocelot is still working for the president, or that's the way it seems at the moment at least. We then get a quote in silence on a black screen as this chapter ends. Have a little read of that. What does this mean? I'm not sure, but I think what it's doing is trying to draw parallels both in-universe and IRL between how nations try to control atomic weapons, suggesting that they will do the same with computers and data. Atomic weapons, at least in this game's universe, are essentially the source of the plot. All the conflict, conspiracies, betrayals, objectives, agendas, and motivations of the characters are always centered around nuclear weapons, or at least part of it. Essentially, if you control nuclear weapons, you can control how things play out. I think what this quote is suggesting is that technology is just as big of a weapon as nuclear weapons themselves. I think this is suggesting that they will be telling a story about the other side of the coin. If you control nuclear weapons, sure, you have a lot of power, but what if you control computers and technology? We'll again come back to this later. But with that, we finish chapter 1, otherwise known as the tanker chapter. But boy, oh boy, are we just getting started. MGS2 is about to go full donkey dick wild, so strap in and saddle up. We hear a familiar voice and an unfamiliar voice.
Snake, do you remember the sinking of that tanker 2 years ago?
Of course.
Terrorists blow a hole in an oil tanker full of crude barely 20 miles off the shore of Manhattan. Your classic nightmare. It didn't take long for the government to put an oil fence around the whole mess.
This is Roy Campbell from MGS1, but that's certainly not Snake. It's definitely not his voice. He is recounting the events of what just played out. It was 2 years ago from this point, but it's all wrong. There was no crude oil on that tanker, we know that. But this Snake, I'm doing inverted commas here, but no one can see it, seems to be agreeing. Here we go. Lies and conspiracy again, boys. I hope that's what you ordered. Anyway, what happened as a result was an oil fence and an offshore cleanup facility being built where the tanker sank off the coast of Manhattan. This facility is called the Big Shell, and apparently a special anti-terrorist group called Dead Cell, formerly of the Navy SEALs, have overtaken it along with some Russian special forces. So the Russians and Americans have joined forces to form this group, again blurring the lines between good and bad and enemy and friend. We get our first shot of the Big Shell as a man emerges from the water. We hear radio chatter. A Navy SEALs team are infiltrating the Big Shell with a man named Stillman. Roy elaborates that these are some very high-value hostages at the Big Shell, including the President of the United States. The same one that Ocelot's working for? Yeah, this is getting a bit stinky-winky already, isn't it? The terrorists want $30 billion, or they'll blow the big they'll blow the Big Shell out of the water. This will leak crude oil into the water and around Manhattan. With the explosion, this will light on fire, giving rise to an incredibly hellish image of Manhattan surrounded by a sea of fire. The timing of this game's release in November 2001, I bet was pretty nerve-wracking for the team at Konami. Months after 9/11, their game was going to release, which centered around a mass threat to human life in the exact same place that the attack took place. Along with other themes of corruption present in the game, was Kojima playing with fire here? Nonetheless, it released. Campbell further elaborates on the threat. With the contaminants leaking into the ecosystem from the explosion, this would essentially wipe out all marine life in the area. He says that the sea will turn into a toxic soup for centuries to come, the worst environmental disaster in history. Well, whoever this dude in the suit is, he's clearly got enough motivation after that. You may notice the infiltration to the Big Shell is pretty similar how we infiltrated Shadow Moses. Hold on to that thought. Our mission is to neutralize the threat by any means necessary and save the president. Campbell notes that SEAL Team 10 are also present in the operation, trying to save the president. However, this is not a joint effort. He says that Foxhound are a covert organization and that the SEALs must not be alerted to their presence, affirming that that is an order. Hang on a minute, aren't Foxhound the bad guys from the last game? This isn't explained for newcomers to the series, but us veterans know that this is also very stinky-winky. Snake notes that there was a hole in the fence and that someone else must have infiltrated before him. Campbell affirms that this is impossible. The SEAL team arrived by a chopper on the roof. Campbell changes Snake's designation to Raiden as a precaution, and they talk about how many VR missions that Raiden's done. Raiden says he feels like some kind of legendary mercenary, some kind of solid snake, if you will. There's a weird moment in this codec call where Roy's voice just completely changes. Have you guys ever noticed this?
Okay, we'll skip that part. Make sure nobody sees you. If you need to, contact me by codec. The frequency is 1-4.
So, we've established that we are not Snake, 100%. For now, we are Raiden. Roy runs us through our sneaking suit that we're wearing. We learn that it's pretty high tech and feeds back a lot of data to Roy and his team. We get a good look at Raiden here, and oh my word, is this boy a twinky-winky doodah. He got some semi-thick hips, no cock and balls, long blonde platinum hair, and this suit is just pretty feminine looking. If you're playing this for the first time in 2001 after beating MGS1, right now you are pissed, let me tell you. I know this is a generally well-known fact, but I can actually recount my personal experience with this. I was super pissed. I'm not playing as the legendary alpha male Solid Snake. What is this? I want my parents' money back right now. Raiden then says,
"There's a lot of pressure on my torso."
In hindsight, it's kind of obvious that Kojima did not make Raiden to be likable at all. He's meant to fall short to Snake's character in every way. The way that Raiden stands, weird. The way that he runs, kind of fruity. The way that he crouches, very fruity. The way he flops onto his tum-tum going into prone, annoying. His voice,
nerd,
abrasive. His face, TBC, but spoilers, it's very Twinkie. Not something that was desired in 2001 by the masses of Solid Snake fans. The way he holds his gun, like a nerd. His ass, kinda nice actually. The only cool thing he does have is his acrobatics and the way he hops over the railings. But overall, playing as this guy is like the Weenie Hut Jr. version of playing as Solid Snake. Anyway, we don't throw our console out the window just yet. I stare at some bugs and call Roy. Listen to this cool conversation that I've actually never heard before.
Bugs. The seawater is polluted with crude oil, and yet they can still survive.
It's an altered bug that can resolve crude oil.
Altered?
Yes, through genetic engineering. It was created in the lab to combat frequent oil spills. It doesn't exist naturally. The bug is genetically altered with DNA from a bacteria called Pseudomonas, which can decompose crude oil. It has an enzyme in its body that can break up oil, and was modified so it instinctively consumes any crude oil that it absorbs. One of the reasons the Big Shell has little oil pollution is because of this bug. It also helps in reducing costs and the number of spill maintenance workers. It's a form of bioremediation. It's for the most part innocuous, so no need to be worried. Those bugs have ravenous appetites. Be careful that they don't end up eating your rations. Shake your equipment to protect the items from sea lice.
How cool is that? They started genetically engineering animals now. Before in MGS1 it was just people. Seems like they would have started with the lice, but hey ho, it is what it is. Also, these guys can eat your rations, so if these guys are on them, you'll need to shake them off. And by what the game means by shake is to equip and unequip your item a load of times. A cool touch. We go to head into the next room and we hear this. When we open the door, we see a dude on his ass, and as we heard, he was put there by a triple combo that we recognize from MGS1 and the tanker mission. We call Roy to say we've seen our first enemy, and they're Russian. Roy confirms that they've likely become mercenaries after what happened at the tanker, an army without a country. We see a few more of these guys on their ass and confirm our suspicions that that's Snake, that's literally Snake, and he's gotten ahead of us. The player obviously knows this is Snake, but this Raiden guy doesn't have a Scooby, although he appreciates his skills. Roy seems perplexed at this also.
One man.
Roy isn't too hung up on this though, and he tells Raiden to take advantage and press on.
There's a terminal in front of the elevator. A node.
Did you say nerd?
Not nerd. Node.
God, Raiden is just such a goober, isn't he? Roy tells us how these nodes work. Essentially, we don't have radar until we log into one of these bad boys in each strut of the Big Shell. Playing the game without these is essentially playing on hard mode. We touch the node and get cuted hard for a brief second. We then put in our details. This node is really just an options menu. Not really sure why they've set it up like this, to be honest. I know I made a big deal about Roy spoon feeding you in the last video, but he goes so overboard in this game too. We literally had the tanker chapter which acted as a tutorial too, so I don't know why they make us go over the same stuff twice. We are then introduced to Rose, who is coincidentally Raiden's girlfriend, which is really coincidental, isn't it? And a bit weird. Anyway, the previous data analyst was in an accident, and a car accident or something, and her family died, or her house blew up, or the Patriots set her house on fire or something. So yeah, we have Rose. Roy notes that in Shadow Moses, the operative's will to survive is important, and that Rose being in contact with Raiden will only improve his chances of success. This is obviously alluding to Meryl and Snake. They've studied everything about Shadow Moses, and it seems they've trained Raiden on it, which is good because so far we're following the same events as Shadow Moses. Infiltration by water, into an elevator room with some guards, up the elevator, and we even get the demasking scene as we go up. Except this time we get stupid Raiden instead of Chad Snake. Oh, and Raiden is called Jack, by the way. Forgot to mention that. Roy tells us that Solid Snake is the leader of the terrorist group that led the takeover of the Big Shell. But then he says he can't be the real Solid Snake as he's been confirmed dead in the tanker incident, even noting that his body was confirmed using DNA. There was no chance that he survived. All right, but our eyes told us otherwise just a minute ago. I call Rose to save, and Raiden asks Rose to get as much data on Solid Snake as possible. Raiden is already questioning things, and we're only at the inception of this game. Roy calls me to tell me how to crawl, which angers me, like, who the f does he think I am? I then take a moment to chill out by looking at the birds to recenter myself spiritually. All is going well when a giant bird shit lands on my screen, and then another.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
After deciding that's enough bird watching, Okay, birds aren't for me. I'm going to deal with my emotions like a man. Cue 100 pull-ups. You heard me, 100 pull-ups. Ever felt so frustrated and down as a man that you think you need therapy? Try 100 pull-ups. Ever got home from work and don't have time to make dinner? Try 100 pull-ups. No food, just 100 pull-ups for dinner.
Raiden, you're...
Yeah, feel fucking good after that. Full, awake, motivated, thriving, moisturized. Grip level 2, baby. This is totally pointless, I think, for the main game. You'll only ever need grip level 1, but it's a good byproduct of sorting my emotions out, and you can already tell in my voice I'm feeling much better. Roy calls us to let us know that SEAL Team 10 is in, much like my dick in your m***, and reminds us that our mission is top secret. Only the Pentagon and Vice President know our plans. We head down the stairs in Strut A, and we're going to skip through Roy calling us to patronize us on how to play this game, otherwise we'll be at grip level 400 by the end of this.
Got it!
I head out to the AB connecting bridge and...
Raiden, watch out! What have you done? You changed the future! You've created a time paradox!
We then hear a communication from SEAL Team 10 who have the president, but they get absolutely dunked on by someone with a railgun by the sounds of it. I grip my way across the bridge like a Chad and head into Strut B, where we get a familiar cutscene. Raiden approaches a corridor full of dead Navy SEALs. It's brutal and looks exactly like the situation we played through in Shadow Moses. You're probably thinking if you played the first game that this sequel is just nostalgia baiting, or lazily reusing things that have been done before, and we'll come back to this later. We then see some SEALs getting taken out by something, but we don't see what. We then see a man jump down from the ceiling, and he's, oh great, he's really fruity too. Dancing his way through the bullets, seemingly moving in slow motion to get behind the SEAL and slit his throat. Damn, this game is brutal. Raiden tiptoes in hesitantly like a bitch, and he sees this fruity ass dude giving this guy a hickey up against a wall when he's spotted by him. This dude holsters his knife in the middle of his crotch and doesn't wear a t-shirt. For me, this is quite unsettling and reminds me of the time I went to Berlin. This fruity dude seemingly moves in slow motion again behind Raiden whilst we're still aiming in the wrong direction, like fucking come on man, please be cool. Just as we're about to get game ended, a SEAL bursts through the door and shouts for us to get down. We're left with a small cut on our face, similar to what we received from Sniper Wolf in MGS1. The SEAL approaches and he has a familiar voice.
Where is he?
Yeah, okay, this is Snake, baby. We're back, we're so back. Fruity dude jumps down from the ceiling again and holds Snake by the forehead, kind of like the way you hold a hungry dog that's trying to get to your food. Then, unlike the way you hold a dog trying to get to your food, throws him up against the wall by his head. He gets a good whiff of Snake here and says that he smells like Snake. Good nose there, mate. When he throws him to the ground, Snake yells at us to shoot him. I kind of forgot Raiden was there. What was he doing this whole time? Did he just freeze or something? Come on, man, please be cooler. Anyway, Raiden open fires just as we're about to get game ended again. He gets a call. This dude is called Vamp. Once again, much like someone you'd meet in Berlin, he's called away by someone and we escape with our life. Just. Raiden and Snake, Pliskin are left to get to know each other. He says he got in via chopper, but we see one of the sea lice we mentioned earlier crawl out of his arsenal gear. Raiden notices this too. We're not dumb, we know this is Snake, and we saw him in the elevator, but we're in this narrative predicament where we know more than Raiden. We have the answers and he doesn't. I think it just further adds to the intentional frustration that Kojima wanted us to feel by playing him. I don't know why he wanted this, but there's evidence for it all over the place. Snake, sorry, I'm not calling him Pliskin. looks Raiden up and down before asking about his suit.
That suit. Are you Foxhound?
Raiden confirms. Snake then says what we already know, that Foxhound was disbanded. He asks where he was before. Raiden tells him he was part of the Army's Force 21 trials. This, I checked, is actually a real-world thing. They seem to be a flexible type of marine unit that's malleable to any crisis response needs, security operations, or forced entries. Snake asks if he's actually ever seen any real combat action from that. Raiden confirms no, but he's done loads of VR and it's indistinguishable from the real thing. Raiden, shut up. Just shut up. Snake tells him that he's missing an element of real battle learning from VR. You don't get injured. In field exercises, they lose a number of soldiers every year. Raiden rebukes that you feel pain in VR. There's a sense of reality and urgency. Ooh. Snake's like, yeah, that's bullshit. Nothing can prepare you for the fear that you only get from the reality of battle situations. He says they've brainwashed Raiden through VR to see battle as just a game with no consequences. War, but as a video game. What better way to raise the ultimate soldier? We get a call from Roy and Snake notices that we're wired with nanomachines. We tell Roy that we didn't find the president. Roy asks if the surviving SEAL member has seen our face, which we tell him yes.
Mission failed!
He then scolds us as our presence is meant to be a top secret. Raiden and Snake then observe a dead Navy SEAL captain as Snake almost passes out from blood loss. He doesn't faint or anything, he just sits down and sparks up a doogie. Fucking legend, man. Raiden asks about Vamp. Snake gives him the lowdown about him, saying he won't see that in VR. We find out he's one of the members of Dead Cell. We get a little rundown of the group, started by former President George Sears, who we spoke about in MGS1. They apparently went rogue and accidentally caused 100 civilian deaths. Snake says he doesn't know why they're here. Snake then perpetuates the rumor that he died on the tanker and that he caused it, but does at least confirm that he isn't leading Dead Cell, which clears things up a little bit for Raiden. Snake is dead and buried. He also confirms that the Russians are mercenaries. Dead Cell actually need them to cover the scale of the big shell. Snake asks why Raiden wasn't briefed on any of this. Why is he here? Raiden won't answer, and he remembers this time that Roy told him not to.
I don't smoke.
Ugh, nerd. We get given a USP-45 so we can actually start braining enemies properly if we want to. I'm not a massive fan of doing pacifist runs. I actually think it's way more fun just to use all the weapons that they put in the game. Like, why would you limit yourself unless it's a repeat playthrough maybe? Snake tells us his codec frequency and we hear some comms of the SEALs in trouble on the BC connecting bridge. Before we go, Snake asks for our name. We tell him Raiden after some hesitation. I let my intrusive thoughts win and point my gun at Snake. He's quick to point his gun back at us. As he falls asleep, I try again, but he's too quick. In keeping with his character, it's a cool little detail. Even if he's sleeping, he's always ready just to whip out the whip, you know? Whip out the whip and blow some brains out. I call Snake's frequency and he answers, but he's asleep. Another cool little detail I just wanted to point out. We head out to the BC connecting bridge and see the SEALs are firing at someone at the entrance to Shell 1. The president lies on the ground in front of her. Hey yo, who is this? Who's this honey? Kojima. Who's this honey? Whoever this honey is, she's got the power of the Jedi on her side as none of these bullets are hitting her, and she doesn't even look slightly phased about it. She then says,
Come.
Vamp then approaches from behind and picks up the president along with the briefcase. This briefcase, by the way, is the nuclear football. This is the first time we've seen it, although it was referenced previously as the package that the SEAL team had in their possession. They fire a grenade at the very sexy honey woman, but it doesn't detonate.
A dud!
The woman says that it's another bad day, and she wants to know if anyone can bring her happiness. She then obliterates the bridge, sending the SEALs overboard. One clings onto the bridge as we hear a light saxophone play in the background as he falls to his death. What an awesome scene. Characteristically cinematic for Kojima. She then apologizes to the dead seagull and walks back into Shell 1. The sound of the gun she fired sounds like the one we heard through the codec and Snake's radio. It's a railgun of some sort. We'll make this association if we've played MGS1 before, as it sounds and acts like the one that was attached to Grey Fox's arm. We call Roy and learn that the terrorists have a Harrier. He then says that due to the SEAL team's deaths, that everything is in our hands now. He says they'll probably execute a hostage / blow the big shell as a retaliation to the SEAL team's assault. Our new objective is to deactivate the C4 that they've wired over the big shell. The president can wait, apparently. Raiden says he's never done bomb disposal before. It wasn't in his VR training. Roy actually basically tells him to shut up about VR training and to go and find Stillman, who came in with the SEAL team on Strut C. He's the bomb disposal expert. We then get this slightly weird conversation.
It's like being in a nightmare you can't wake up from.
Jack, snap out of it.
And you, Rose, I can't believe you're on this mission. I keep thinking I'll wake up.
Raiden, this is real. And that's why you won't wake up.
But nothing seems real.
I've made up my mind to stay with you. Whether this is real or a bad dream, I'll keep watching you till it's over.
Thank you, Rose. And I won't let you be just a dream.
We head over to Strut C, and there are no more enemies here at the moment. I head into the bathroom, and I hear a bleep. I just found a bomb, but have no means of disarming it. I find a picture of a hot babe and call Roy to see if he has anything to say, or if I get a trophy for jacking off like we did earlier. Unfortunately not, because Raiden is so lame compared to Snake. He doesn't even jack off when he sees a hot girl. What the fuck? Fucking nerd? We then get a cutscene. Raiden finds Stillman and starts pointing a gun at him. Snake then enters and tells him to stop pointing his gun everywhere like a fucking idiot. Snake knows exactly who Stillman is, showing his superior intelligence to Raiden. He knows his history and his nature and his stature in the bomb disposal community. Stillman says he lost his leg when he failed to defuse a bomb at a church. Lots of people died in this incident. Raiden then says, "So you're the bomb disposal guy," whilst standing there like this. Kojima, you can stop making him so annoying now. I get what you're trying to do. Snake then corrects him, saying that Stillman is the bomb disposal guy. He's on every explosive textbook you'll come across. Raiden asks why he's here. He says because of Fat Man, another member of Dead Cell, the one responsible for the explosive threat we discussed earlier. Fat Man was one of Stillman's pupils. He built an atomic bomb when he was just 10 years old. Stillman is concerned that there are no SEALs left to defuse the bomb. Snake then says there are at least 2 people here who know how to defuse a bomb. They both look at Raiden, implying he's the one who doesn't know what he's doing. Stillman asks if Raiden and Snake are here with SEAL Team 10.
Nope.
SEAL Team 10, pointing out that he didn't see Snake at the mission briefing. Snake says they're with another squad and introduces himself as Pliskin. Stillman doesn't shake his hand, probably because he doesn't believe him. He asks Raiden's name, then tells him that that's an odd name. Man, everyone is just throwing shade at Raiden. Why do we have to play as him? I remember thinking. Stillman says there is one other survivor, an engineer, a skinny guy with glasses. He hasn't seen him since they came in though. The picture that flashes up looks like Otacon, and I think unless I'm missing something, it is Otacon. Snake says we need to defuse the bombs like a hero, and Raiden is all like, "But I don't know how to do that. I didn't get VR training in it. Let me ask Daddy Roy." Even Roy is a bit sick of this. He's like, "You're with the best in the business, just do what he says." Rose jumps in to support him by confirming that he has what it takes to do it. Stillman then runs us through what we'll be doing. We won't actually disarm the bomb, just freeze it. Easy. He even gives us a sensor so we can see the bomb on the map. Fat Man's signature is to put cologne on every bomb, and this sensor will pick up the fumes leading us to the bomb. Stillman says he follows his own rules, even when common sense doesn't prevail. Stillman feels like he failed him. He didn't guide him properly. He taught him the skills, but didn't guide him on how or why to use them. He feels responsible for how Fat Man is now using those skills. Stillman gives us some direction on where the C4 will be, one in each strut of each shell. This would be enough to bring it down by targeting the structural points. So we have a total of 12 bombs. Stillman is sure Fat Man would have followed this plan, as it's the only way to bring down the big shell, and it's what Stillman would have done if he was tasked with doing the same. Stillman gives us a level 1 keycard, and Raiden's all like, "What is this?" We all know what this is though, L1 doors, because we have more experience than Raiden. Funny that, isn't it? Snake will be starting with the shell 2, whilst we focus on shell 1. Stillman is told to stay put by Snake, as he doesn't have the time to babysit Sir Limps-a-Lot. Stillman agrees to support via codec. Snake kinda blows his cover here by saying "Who Dares Wins" and "Semper Fi." Stillman points out to Raiden after Snake leaves that "Who Dares Wins" is an SAS saying, and "Semper Fi" is US Army. He doesn't believe this is a SEAL as a result. He also notes the headphones that he's wearing. SEAL team leaders usually stay away from the field. This further adds to Raiden's suspicions, but Raiden misfires and asks if Snake is a terrorist. Good try, Raiden. Stillman then says if he's suspecting anyone, it's Raiden. Raiden then can't say anything to defend himself, as Roy told him he can't share any details about the mission. Stillman locks himself in the pantry for safety, signing off with this cool as fuck saying,
"Bomb disposal is a face-off with your own mortality. Don't let the fear get to you. When you give in to the fear, the darkness comes."
I look at some babes, grab a ration under one of the tables in the canteen, then head out to defuse the bomb I found earlier in the toilet. Although for some reason the button to spray the coolant wasn't the fire button, so I fumble around like an idiot for a bit trying to figure it out. Turns out it was aligned to the R3 button. You push it forward to spray it. This mimics, or at least is closer to squeezing a real-life spray bottle. And as a result, it's actually a nice little immersive touch from Kojima, despite me being an idiot and not realising how to use it. Stillman via codec notes that this isn't a normal place for a bomb. It's not one of the structural points we needed to take it down. He thinks something else is going on. Maybe Fat Man knew Stillman would be coming, and as a result, these might be traps or decoys or something. Anyway, for now, all we know is that we need to defuse these, so we run around the struts doing exactly that. Strut D is the sediment pool and has a number of guards in it. I take them out politely this time by putting them to sleep. Remember what I said earlier about how Snake holds his gun to the right and supports aiming with his left arm? Raiden aims it straight down the middle and runs with it held in the middle, like he's holding his hands together in prayer or something. It doesn't look like how Snake does it, and it's just a small character difference for me that I noticed that adds to the fact that Raiden's meant to be a bit more of a novice and a bit of a nerd, if you will. Anyway, we throw open one of the hatches and find a bomb and defuse it. We see a cool new feature of the game here. We hear someone on the radio calling the guards to report on Strut D. No one answers, so they send a team out to investigate. Not before I've already left. In MGS2, if you take out a guard, this can actually lead to a harder time for you, as they send more to wake them up and search the area. The AI has taken a massive leap from MGS1, and this is a really cool mechanic that adds a lot of depth to the gameplay. Into Strut E, the sorting room, you can actually fast travel around the big shell here if you have each of the different cardboard boxes, a returning mechanic that we saw in MGS1, just a bit more expanded. I don't use this in the game though, as I found it more fun going through the areas and it wasn't too long going by foot. It's cool that they give you like a in-universe way to fast travel like this though. As with MGS1, each time you have to backtrack in this game, they'll change up the challenge in each area to keep it fresh. I'm looking for the bomb in Strut E and can't find it, so I go up to the heliport where we see the following cutscene. We hear Olga on the phone saying she saw a man dressed as a ninja. The man on the phone says, is she sure it wasn't an Arsenal Tengu? What's an Arsenal Tengu? I'm a bit of a know-it-all when it comes to MGS1, and this was the first time me and Raiden were in the same boat. I didn't know what this was at the time, but I guess this must be like a ninja as they seem to be related through this conversation. She also says that she saw a man hiding under a cardboard box on the connecting bridge to Shell 2. They say they will leave a trap there, so we need to bear this in mind as we go forward. So we can expect that when we arrive, we'll need to keep our eyes open. Raiden points his gun at her and she just... We call Snake and he confirms that this is Olga. She's the leader of the Russian mercenaries after Sergei died in the tanker. Snake tells us to watch ourselves with her. She's a tough one. I find the next bomb underneath the Harrier jet Roy mentioned earlier. Stillman says this is another dumb place to put a bomb, also noting that the quantity is far less than is needed to achieve the demolition job at hand. It's definitely a trap at this point, but all we can do at this stage is defuse the bombs in front of us. We head onto the connecting bridge to Strut F, where we have to avoid the guard above with binoculars. Once he turns left, we're free to run across the...
Be careful, there are Claymore mines around there.
Who is this?
Stealth-equipped Claymore mines, invisible to the naked eye. Use the mine detector.
Identify yourself.
Just call me Deep Throat.
Deep Throat? You mean from Shadow Moses?
Mr. X, then.
Mr. X now, is it? Why would it matter if I called you Deep Throat?
Never mind about that.
Why did you contact me?
Let's just say I'm one of your fans.
Even Raiden is catching on to the similarities between this and Shadow Moses. The conversation is exactly the same as MGS1. Roy doesn't know anything about it, but also confirms that the transmission is coming from inside the big shell. Another repeated line from MGS1. Roy confirms this won't be Grey Fox from MGS1 though, as he is confirmed dead, and I'm 99% sure he is from what happened at the end of MGS1. But Snake is also confirmed dead by Roy, and we're like 99% sure he's alive too. All of this serves to confuse the player, not for the sake of it though. We'll see how this and the lack of clarity on who the enemies are serves the overall story in due course. I decide to go off course and check out Shell 1 core and luckily avoid all the collapsing tiles on the bridge. This is a return feature from MGS1, so returning players are used to it by now. We use the hanging mechanic to get around this time. I am sighted on the way to Strat F and get fired upon by an armed cipher. When we reach Strat F, the guards are on evasive measures. I wait it out behind these boxes here. During caution or evasion, people are looking for you more than normal. They'll check most areas and corners, and this is an added layer of depth between normal status and alert status, and I like the way it's done. It adds to the realism, as they wouldn't just go from alert to all clear immediately, as the radio says. After caution is over, too, the guards usually in the area are told to stay alert. Getting caught has more consequences than last time out in MGS1, other than just an immediate alert threat. It's good game mechanic development. Guards will also wake up other guards they find asleep, which incentivizes the player to drag the bodies out the way somewhere, as a search party will be sent through once communications have ceased due to all the guards either being dead or asleep. I mostly tranquilize the guards here, so when the search party finds them, it's just a case of waking them up. I can't actually remember what happens if they're found dead, as it doesn't really happen in this playthrough. Guards rush through as I defuse the last bomb. They're waking up the asleep guards as I wait it out behind some more boxes. The search party leaves after giving the all clear. I climb on top of the boxes and start knocking the guards out again. This area is one of the harder ones to navigate due to its various levels of verticality, and it feels like as soon as you take out one of the guards, they realise that comms have stopped and send out a search party, so you have to avoid them too. That said, it makes sense as basically all the weapons are stored here. We then get a call from Rose for this totally poor timed but cute moment.
Jack, do you remember the day we met?
I'm kind of busy right now, Rose.
You're right, sorry.
I do remember. It was right after I transferred to New York. There were all these tourists around you in front of the Federal Hall.
A group of middle-aged Japanese ladies came up and asked me which building it was that King Kong was climbing in the movie. I said it was probably the Chrysler building, and then you showed up and started mouthing off. You were like, no, it's the Empire State.
I said the Chrysler building was in Godzilla.
We started arguing, and I forgot all about the tourists. I was insisting that I was right, and you were doing the same. The next thing we knew, the Japanese women had gone away, and we ended up going to the Skyscraper Museum to see who had the better recall.
We argued all the way to Battery Park.
And for nothing.
Since the museum was closed, we went our separate ways from the museum. And then I found you again by coincidence out in the base corridor.
An amazing coincidence that we were actually working at the same place.
That night we went up to the top of the Empire State.
It was so beautiful. I could look down on the Chrysler building from 120 stories above ground.
I felt overwhelmed. I didn't care anymore who was right.
And that was our first date.
We watched King Kong in your apartment a bunch of times that night. Didn't sleep till morning. If it weren't for that coincidence, we wouldn't be together.
I know. I'm sorry, Jack. I'm taking up your time again.
What?
Take care.
Kinda weird how abruptly she ends the conversation, and there are multiple ways that we can interpret its timing. We'll come back to this later. I make my way to the next strat and we're back where we started. This game is laid out in a much more suitable way for backtracking, a criticism of the previous game. Instead of going backwards, you're now going in circles. Much better. This bomb requires some big brain understanding of MGS and its mechanics. We need to crawl under and around some pipes in the pump room. Stillman tells us there is one left to go. Snake jumps in to tell us that he checked out the bottom of strut H, and Raiden notices that this wasn't part of the original plan that he was working to. Stillman tells us that he asked Snake to do it based off of the suspicions that we discussed earlier. They didn't ask Raiden because they don't trust him. Once again, Raiden has been kept in the dark. We were kept in the dark a lot in MGS1 by Roy, but this time it comes across differently. In MGS1, it's not because we weren't trusted, we were just being treated like a grunt. The info wasn't need to know for Snake, but with Raiden, everyone but him knows that Foxhound isn't a thing anymore. Like, who is he and why is he here? So everyone's a bit cautious of him. However, the player definitely aligns himself more with Snake still. So for me personally, I'm never surprised or frustrated about being kept in the dark playing as Raiden. It actually makes sense. Snake says he found a ton of C4 packed at the bottom of Strat H, and they're not showing up on the sensor. No Cologne signature. Stillman has been fooled. Snake says he only found it by luck. This is when Stillman says he'll go look for the bombs himself, but Raiden points out about his leg again, then Stillman comes clean.
You'll never make it. With that bad leg of yours, they'll spot you for sure.
That won't happen. I can walk just fine. I can even run.
What do you mean?
That bomb 5 years ago, I messed up. Even with all my experience, I lost it. And the church was lost in the explosion. All those kids playing nearby, too. These past 5 years, I've lived a lie.
Lied?
Yes, lied. I didn't lose my leg in the explosion. So many dead. All because of my mistake. All I could think about was hiding from the crime, shielding myself from the public outcry. I wanted people to be sorry for me, for my weakness. I faked being a victim myself because I couldn't bear to face the families of the real victims. This is no prosthetic. I can keep my footing on catwalks and hike over deserts. I lived my lie so well I haven't even answered to myself for my sins. It was supposed to be a shield, and it's become a shroud instead. I've killed my soul by playing the victim. Instead of protecting me, it's made my life even more hellish.
What good can that do the victims?
I know. I'm a coward.
Hey, Pete.
God forgive me. I can walk with my own 2 feet, and I need them to stop Fat Man. His crimes are also mine. One of omission and arrogance. No one should teach the skills I taught him without a clear conscience. This is the only way I can diffuse my own sins.
I love the way that Kojima uses soundtrack to enhance emotional and personal moments. Stillman is another tragic hero, with a tragic flaw in response to immense trauma. He admits that he's been a coward and asks for God to forgive him, but he doesn't dwell on it. He realizes that this is his time to make it right. As he says, time to diffuse his own sins. What another badass line. We have one more bomb to defuse ourselves in Strut B. This one was a little cheeky, to be honest. I couldn't see it anywhere. I thought I was just missing it in the roof somewhere, or maybe it was outside the room I was looking in. But it was very sneakily behind this open door. We speak to Stillman and he tells us to get the new equipment from the canteen to pick up the new type of bomb that the Fat Man's been planting. We pick up Sensor B and are told to head to the bottom of Strut A to look for the final bomb. Snake jumps in to tell us that he's located his final bomb, but before Stillman can tell him not to freeze it, it's too late. It was a trap. The real bombs are activated only when the dummy bombs are all deactivated. That was the game that Fat Man was playing all along, and he's totally outsmarted Stillman. Side note, just as I was writing this, I realized how funny that Peter's character initially, we thought he couldn't walk, right? And Kojima called him Stillman. It's like what's that Die Hardman guy from Death Stranding? Like pretty on the nose. Still man. Anyway, this is the reason I love doing these videos, because personally I hadn't noticed this at all before, so you tend to pick up these things and it's really enjoyable. Anyway, back in the action, we've got to go. We have 400 seconds to get down to the bottom of Strut A. The music kicks in and we're off. I made it there in like 5 seconds. On the way down the elevator, Stillman calls us as he doesn't know how to defuse Fat Man's bomb. He's far surpassed Pete's abilities, and it's too late for him before... No time to mourn Stillman, who is now beyond all reasonable doubt permanently still, for good this time. I find the bomb and spray that bad boy with some Lynx Africa. I call Roy to confirm. He confirms that there's no damage to the ecosystem or the bay from the explosion in Shell 2. This is great news. Time to rescue the president. But wait, we get a call from the terrorists. They've executed a hostage on the roof in response to the bomb neutralization. 1 hostage per hour from here on out, apparently. Both Roy and Rose tell us to forget about the hostages and that the president is the main objective. Raiden says he's here to save everyone, and Roy rebukes that he's just one man, or is he expecting Pliskin to help him, before saying,
"That man was not included in the simulation. He is not a factor in this mission."
What do you mean by that, Colonel?
Raiden asks what he means by that, but the Colonel doesn't answer. All I can say is it's stinky winky super suspicious at this point, but regardless of our questions, we never stop progressing the mission. In the next room, we are cornered by sexy Baywatch lady, aka Fortune. Oh, and she brought her OP weapon. That's good news, fantastic. I think this is a case of mistaken identity though. She asks for us to show ourselves and to finish her, like we finished her father. I don't know if she thinks it's Ocelot down here or Snake. Either way, she definitely wasn't expecting Raiden. Fortune now realizes that we're not who she was expecting. And now is the first time in the story that I start to respect Raiden and his character arc, although starting pretty low, starts to go up in terms of player respect from here. This was a badass dodge, and landing ready to pop this gal deserves some credit. Fortune says that we've seen the fires of hell, and to the newcomer, this line doesn't make sense, but my classic line, we'll come back to this later, as it's referencing what is currently a blind spot in Raiden's timeline. Fortune asks us to give her death. She says she's lucky in war, but nothing else. She asks us to kill her before the boss fight starts, and this banger starts playing. Fortune's health bar is only one shot.
Bro, he's one shot, he's one shot, trust me, he's one shot!
But each time you try to shoot her, nothing works. Nothing in our armory will do any damage, so we just sit here whilst shit hits the fan all around us. She's definitely fucking hacking or something. The elevator button goes off. Someone is coming down. Thank God, as we literally haven't got a way out of here. Anything to help would be pretty great at this point. We speak to Ray, and amongst the chaos, he tells us that Fat Man has planted a bomb on the heliport and asked for us specifically. Yeah, we're a bit busy here, man. Like, we can't come just yet. Did your Dead Cell colleagues not tell you? Apparently not. We're given 400 seconds to get there. When we get off the call, Vamp is actually here, which at least stops the firing for now. He says he'll take over. They confirm that Fat Man is now out of control. He's gone mad bomber mode and is no longer aligned with Dead Cell, or notably someone called Commander Jackson. But just who is Commander Jackson? He's the husband of Fortune, the former leader of Dead Cell. He was imprisoned due to corruption and misappropriation of their funds. Dead Cell tried to get the case overturned, but he ended up dying in Leavenworth prison of exhaustion. This was hinted at earlier when Roy briefed us. This was the trigger point for Dead Cell actually turning bad. Anyway, Vamp is keen to finish us off, but Raiden actually does something pretty smart here, and realizing that the bullets shot of Fortune bend around her, shoots at her and the bullets bend straight into Vamp's skull. See what I mean about his redemption arc? Raiden is on the way back up, baby. Fortune moans about not dying again, and frankly this is pretty overdramatic. She looks relatively young, and surely she's not completely done with life yet. Saying that, she did lose her husband and father, her father being the commandant in the tanker mission we played earlier, Scott Dolph. Anyway, she's getting all upset, but we have a bomb timer counting down, so we just slip past. There's a moment in the elevator where we zoom in on Raiden holstering his weapon like, what the fuck was that? The camera stays down with Fortune and Vamp, and suddenly Vamp opens his eyes like, what's up, my queen?
There's no need for sorrow, queen.
I hear the word queen from him in this game, and it always makes me laugh. The context of that word has just changed so much over the years. It's like a Reddit thing now, like, ooh, my queen. And the way Vamp says it, it's like perfectly cringe. Anyway, I think you guys probably know what I'm talking about. We reach the top of the elevator. We rush over to the heliport, trying to ignore the arduous amounts of bullets being thrown at me. I simply did not have time for it. When we arrive, we're greeted by a solitary bomb on the helipad, and the Harrier is gone. A cutscene plays, and this is him. He's spewing some exposition about bombs and how much he wants to marry them.
Bombs tell the time with every moment of their existence, and nothing else announces its own end with such a fanfare.
This is some loopy design from Kojima. Bro is a fat man in an armored suit on roller skates drinking red wine out of a cocktail glass. Yeah, that's pretty Kojima, innit? Fat Man doesn't know anything about the ransom, another plot hole in Raiden's own headcanon. He also states that Stillman died a dishonourable death 6 months ago, further feeding into the theme of misinformation being thrown around in this game. Raiden this time is a little smarter and realises 6 months ago is when Dead Cell actually liquidated. This again is progression for Raiden as he realises quickly that he's being lied to, but it's not all a straightforward redemption arc from here. I'll explain a little more later, but Raiden will become the victim of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Raiden is riling up Fat Man, Solid Snake style, saying he won't be remembered for anything but a dumbass bomber, questioning his delusions about his own legacy. This shows another element of Raiden's progression. All this real-world experience is paying off for him. He's starting to become more like the legendary mercenary he said he felt like at the beginning, this being Solid Snake. This fight is super goofy. Fat Man is pretty campy and is literally on roller skates, might I remind everyone. Sometimes you'll see him just butting down. The only difficulty in this fight is balancing defusing the bombs with doing damage to him. But he also moves around mad quick, and when he stops to regain his breath, that's your opportunity to shoot him. But you can only see the top of his head, so you've got to be a good aim in first person. The controls obviously aren't as good as, say, Call of Duty 4 when it comes to first person shooting, so this adds a little challenge for sure. Anyway, we dispatch him relatively easy here. If you cartwheel into him, you can knock him out, giving you an easier shot at his head. Yeah, bro's cardio is not good at all. He finally comes to a rasping stop, and we have him at gunpoint. He laughs that his suit is ruined for the party by the bloodstain, and Raiden says,
"The party's over for you!"
Yeah, go Raiden. Very cool, Raiden, well done. Fat Man then pulls out a detonator and... Fat Man says he's placed one more bomb, the biggest one yet. It's activated and there's no stopping the count. He says not to worry as it's very close by, taunting us to solve the problem. He's convinced he dies here and this is where his legend starts. He's pretty happy with the whole thing, to be honest. However, he's only knocked out as we can see stars going around his head. We pick him up and move him. We see a big bomb where his body was previously. When we drop Fat Man, he drops Stillman's dog tags, implying that he went and found his body after the explosion. Another cool detail. We freeze the bomb and speak to Roy, Raiden questioning how Fat Man had no idea about the ransom money, starting to grow ever more distrustful of the man that he's working for. Just like in MGS1, we proceed with our orders anyway. Snake calls and he's alive, which is great, saying that he had a little help from a friend. This is assumably Otacon. There is plenty of damage to Shell 2 though. They talk about how they're going to get the hostages out, but can't come to a solution really in this call other than via a chopper. That will take a couple of trips. Snake says that he has someone who he will introduce us to later who can fly it. Raiden notes that the Harrier isn't on the heliport anymore. The Snake also doesn't know where this could be. Raiden tries to flex a bit here, saying that their orders are to save the president. Snake rebukes, "Those are your orders, not mine." We call Rose to save the game and get the following conversation.
Pliskin is with you too. You'll be all right. What's wrong?
Nothing.
Don't give me that. Every time you say nothing, it's always something. What's wrong?
It's just that, you know, you seem to think pretty highly of him.
Well...
Yeah, Pliskin's the kind of guy you can really depend on, isn't he?
What?
What?
Yeah, Pliskin is one heck of a man, isn't he? He's so cool, so confident.
Yeah.
But he's nowhere near as cool as you. You'll always be my number one. Always.
But that's not what I meant.
You know, you're kind of cute sometimes. Bye, Jack.
I'm not really sure what Raiden's angle was here. It starts off like he's jealous, but then he implies we and Rose are missing the point. Let me know down in the comments if you can make sense of this. We go to leave the helipad and we're stopped by a ninja.
What the fuck was that?
Okay, this is very, very Shadow Moses, and the ninja also repeats the line, "I am like you, I have no name, and I am neither enemy nor friend." These are some very obvious callbacks that might at first just seem like fan service at the moment or laziness, but that's too many coincidences now, even for someone on their first playthrough. What does this all mean? We interrogate the ninja who says that they're just a messenger for the Lale Lule Lo, the Patriots for those who don't have nanomachines. They jump on a codec call to discuss more privately. The ninja was ordered to give us backup. They won't tell us anything about their true orders or who they are reporting to. Raiden finds this frustrating, and the ninja says Raiden is not yet trusted to know more. The ninja tells us about a Secret Service member named Ames, who knows where they're now keeping the president. They have him held hostage in Shell 1 core. Raiden questions why he should believe them, the ninja replying that they have no choice. The only thing we know about Ames is that they have a pacemaker. We need to find a directional mic to be able to hear this. We're given the L2 security card to progress. The ninja gives us a terrorist outfit so we can blend in, and there's a surveillance camera that will check this outside the lift we need to go down on the way to find Ames. We'll also need an AK-74U to complete the outfit. The uniform won't fool anyone outside the core though, as they wear different outfits. We'll also need to pass a retinal scan to get into the conference hall once down the elevator. Nothing but the real thing will suffice. The ninja tells us the terrorists have access codes for the nuclear football. Raiden queries why they brought this to the Big Shell in the first place, but the ninja says that this was brought by the president, and that it's not an environmental cleanup facility at all. Nothing in this game is what it seems. Then going on to say that the facility is a cover-up for the Metal Gear that is housed here. We're then given a cell phone, but not explained why they've given us a cell phone. We call Roy asking who that man was. Raiden asks Roy if he's telling him everything, and Roy says he's not holding anything back, which we know by now is defo BS.
Is that everything you know? Or everything I need to know?
Shut the fuck!
Roy confirms the next objective, dress as a soldier and infiltrate the core just like the ninja told us to. I think this is kind of weird how Roy just takes the ninja's advice and immediately makes it our objective, but this will make sense later. I then call Snake. He tells us that the ninja has no connection to the one at Shadow Moses. This serves to confuse the player even more, as like I mentioned earlier, they keep saying the same lines, so there must be a connection to Shadow Moses, but he's here saying there's none. He closes the conversation by saying, careful who you trust. But for Raiden, should that also apply to Snake? We're into the thick of the mind fucking now, and it doesn't ease off from here. Oh no. I head over to the core but get dunked on by a bunch of strapped up flying wallies. We then get a call from Rose. She dug up some info on Solid Snake. She mentions that the body found was with the right arm missing, but the DNA was a complete match, which means that there's no doubt that it was Snake's body. But we know better than that, don't we? We, the player, MGS1 superfans, will know that both Liquid and Solid Snake are genetically identical. And whose right arm has gone AWOL in the last game? Yeah, Liquid's. This is an interesting point about misinformation. Imagine you're in the world of MGS and you hear about the tanker incident and heard that Snake died on the news. As soon as you hear that there was a genetic match on the body, it's case closed, right? But this game's truth has so many layers to it, and we're only going to delve deeper into those layers as the story progresses. Raiden does glean some truth from this, that the terrorist leader is not Solid Snake, at least. I'd mistakenly gone to Core 1 a bit early, and we can see some cool room clearing gameplay from the Russian soldiers as I try to evade. I head back to the warehouse to grab an AK-74U to complete the disguise, and also pick up the M4. I walk in my disguise and it's working perfectly. The CCTV lets me in the elevator and I go down to B1. I need to put a guard's face up to the biometric scanner to progress. However, I stupidly tried everything wrong, a dead enemy, a sleeping enemy, before trying the option that actually makes sense, an alive enemy with their eyes open. I grab a guard and use him like a Kleenex, then throw him away. When we enter the hostage room, we get a call from Roy and Rose to patronize us that we haven't got the directional mic. I pick up the mic, avoiding the guards, and get back to the hostage room, not before Roy tells me the exact same thing for a second time.
According to our information, Ames has a pacemaker.
And having a quick stare off with a mouthy parrot.
What the fuck are you looking at?
When I get back to the hostage room, oh my god, Roy calls me to tell me the same thing for a third time. This part of the game sucks so hard, these codecs go so overboard at this point in the game, totally unnecessary, and that's the first proper criticism of the video, I think. We find Ames nice and quick, and it was relatively easy as his heart is literally going. I go to him and narrowly avoid getting steamrolled by a guard that looked dead set on sticking to his route around the room.
Where am I?
I call out to him and get a cutscene.
Who told you about me?
An informer calling himself Mr. X dressed like a ninja.
I see.
I love how he's just like, I see. Totally rational explanation.
Take this thing off me, will you? I'm Richard Ames.
Secret Service?
No, I was sent in by the Lali Lule Lo, just like you.
What?
But then again, he says he was sent in by the Lale Lule Lo, just like us. This is a pretty big reveal off the cuff. For some sharper players, this will connect the dots of why we're here. Foxhound was disbanded. No one knows who sent us, but Ames does. And he was sent by the same people, the Patriots. We see Ocelot has noticed us, but might just think that it's a guard chatting to a prisoner. Ames tells us where the president is, first floor, Shell 2 core. He's sure they haven't hurt him, as they need biometrics and physiological data, i.e. his heartbeat, to be able to activate the bomb. All this information is relayed by his nanomachines and is completely unhackable. If they're not at normal levels, it won't activate, meaning that if anyone tries to point a gun at him to activate it, his vital signs will show he is under stress, and the activation won't work. Or if you drug him, this will also impact his vital signs. It's an awesome concept for a fail-safe system. Ames confirms that the new Metal Gear is here too, and that the black case also holds the key to its activation. Raiden asks, why would they hide Metal Gear here? And Ames, like Snake earlier, is a bit like, have you not been briefed, like, at all? He reveals that all of this was planned and engineered. The tanker incident necessitated the building of the Big Shell, and the Big Shell was built specifically for housing the new Metal Gear. Roy told us at the very beginning of this chapter the very story that Ames is debunking right now. We thought the only part of that story that was a lie was the bit about Snake dying, and Snake being behind the terrorist group. Now it's revealed that the whole thing is a lie, and it's actually misinformation engineered by the Patriots, we assume. Note, we're assuming that this new Metal Gear that everyone's talking about is Ray, right? Those are the images that were flashed in front of us multiple times when the ninja told us that it was being housed here. But that's not new, is it? That Ray was on the tanker that went down 2 years ago. At this point, I'm questioning if there's another Metal Gear we haven't seen yet. The real reason all these VIP hostages are here are to check its progress. This is yet another similarity to Shadow Moses that cannot be looked over now. They keep adding up. He stops the conversation. He says, "Here comes Snake," and we whip out the mic to listen. I get way too distracted, however, by the sounds of this soldier in the bathroom.
What? Oh!
Yet another repeat event from Shadow Moses, a guard with a bad tum-tum. But the soldier is monologuing as he is shitting himself, and he actually talks about Shadow Moses and Meryl. This guy is literally the same guard from Shadow Moses that was guarding Meryl and Snake when we got captured. Yet another cool detail. I've completely missed the conversation of Ocelot and who we are calling Snake at this point. We do hear that they've entered the nuclear launch codes and seem confident that the president will activate it, which is pretty wild. Olga walks in asking about the cyborg ninja again, but I get distracted by the pooping soldier. He's run out of toilet paper. Classic.
Oh, there's no paper.
I get back to Ocelot and Olga and they're pointing guns at each other. What did I miss? This is all very chaotic, and if I missed anything important, let me know down in the comments. Ocelot ends the conversation by saying,
"Yes, King."
Which again, in today's context, sounds pretty funny. We can tell this new guy isn't Snake from his grey hair, but no one else is completely sure. Ames only noting that there can't be two of them, even though there was two of them in MGS1. I don't think a single person in this game so far is like completely informed and completely knows what's going on. Like, not even us. Raiden mentions the ransom to Ames. Ames is like, what the fuck are you talking about? There's no ransom. Raiden really has no clue what's going on. Ames explains that the terrorists plan to detonate the nuke high above Manhattan, bringing down all of the electrical systems in the area. Raiden starts putting the pieces together. This is one of the key financial centers in the world's economy. If this goes down, it could cause a global recession. But not just that. Ames elaborates by saying that the terrorists want to completely liberate Manhattan, ushering in a new republic, untouched by technology. He goes offline as Ocelot is actually on his way over here. Quick note though, this is the first time we've heard about technology being the target of the terrorists. Why would they want to do this? Well, remember that quote we read at the end of the tanker chapter? Maybe technology is a more deadly weapon than we think. Ames gives us a level 3 security card which allows us to get into Shell 2. He tells us we must reach the president before they launch the nuke. Ocelot Chad comes over and starts interrogating us. He knows who Ames is. He knows who he works for. The Patriots. And whips out his revolver Ocelot. Before he can be revolved, he has a decoy octopus. Revolver revolves a lot, then targets us and asks us to identify ourselves. The guard whips off our mask and Revolver points his Ocelot at our Raiden. Then the Ninja Fox jumps in to save our life, deflecting the bullets of the guards. Ocelot says, "Careful where you're revolving your bullets because the hostages might catch a stray." Raiden then runs away like a little pansy. Ocelot is confused as to why the ninja is back after he died in the first game. We make our escape and everyone is on alert looking for us. We report the death of Ames to the Colonel and he's very upset.
That's unfortunate.
Raiden tells him that the $30 billion was a cover-up and that they planned to nuke the whole time. Roy is like,
"What? Nah, I never knew that.
This part is so far all over the place. Roy and Rose are kind of just shooting in every direction. It's not clear if the president is good or bad, and the motives of the terrorists are shifting from what we understood them to be. We hop into the elevator and make our way over to Shell 2 to see if we can get some straight answers out of the president himself. The bridge is rigged with traps, but this is really easy to... This time, I make sure to destroy all of the control units before... Turns out this little cipher has got a control unit on, and there are some PSG-1 bullets tactically placed to the right here. This clearly tells us that we need to go and get a PSG-1 to take out the cipher in order to cross. I head back to the warehouse where we found all of the other guns so far, and bring it back to the bridge. The shot is easy enough. I take out 2 birds accidentally before... Fourth time lucky, I take out all the sensors and we get a call from Snake, and they plan how to get the hostages out using the enemy Kasatka, when we get introduced to Otacon very briefly before they're found by the guards. We call Roy and ask who Pliskin is. Raiden thinks he's Snake after the reveal of Otacon. Roy jumps in to spread some misinformation about Snake and Otacon, and Raiden doesn't accept it. He won't believe it this time. Roy and Rose keep pressing that it can't be him, but Raiden calls out the fact that if he's dead, he also can't be the terrorist leader as they say he was. They're getting their lives in a tangle here. The call ends and we see the following cutscene. Snake and Otacon fly overhead in the chopper. When we turn away, we see this.
I've been waiting for you.
Wow.
Where do I know him from?
So you're the boss around here?
No, not just around. I'm the boss to surpass Big Boss himself, Solid Snake. No, that is not Solid Snake.
Well, 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 it's Snake vs. Snake. The dude right here is Solid as Snake, and he's impersonating Solid Snake for some reason. But says he's a whole different game to Liquid. Well, yeah, Liquid was a top-off kind of guy, and he's a mech suit kind of guy, and old. Way less cool at the moment, in my opinion, like at least for now. Turns out Solidus is pretty gnarly, jumping out of the way of the noob tubes whilst Raiden gets cucked by one. Snake just fires another one and supposedly knocks him off. Only 4.
Hello?
Vamp catches him on the Harrier that we saw earlier. Solidus jumps in saying that the world needs only one big boss. This implies that this dude right here is another brother of Snake and Liquid. We'll learn more about this later. But for now, it's time to take out Liquid in the chopper with the Stinger. I mean Solidus in the Harrier. Yeah. Well, it's time for Raiden to be a big-ass boy now. Still with the help of Snake, but shit's getting real. I just pivot between 2 points on the bridge really. They'll do strafing runs where you'll find a bit more safety on the lower level. He makes such goofy noises when you hit him with the Stinger. This fight is fun for sure, but just a bit fiddly when you're trying to position yourself and open up the Stinger without seeing like a wall or a railing in front of you. Snake repeatedly says, "I'll take care of it," then does nothing, which is kind of weird. The way the narrative is going, I would have thought they would have him step in and do most of the work, as they've been selling Raiden as pretty incapable. This, however, isn't the case, and we nail the Harrier one final time. Raiden anime rolls out the way of the Harrier as we see it plummet to the water, before seeing this.
There's something coming up.
That's Metal Gear! It's already active!
It starts bombing everything and we're almost knocked off the bridge. Snake and Otacon are hit and retreat to a nearby helipad. Solidus just lost an eye here.
They got my eye!
Then Vamp, cool as a cucumber, just walks on water. Yeah, nanomachines I guess, right, Kojima? Then he just... Man, these nanomachines are crazy. Snake calls us to tell us that the chopper needs repairing. Raiden asks him if he is the Solid Snake, and he comes clean, but he affirms that he's no legend.
Legend? A legend is nothing but fiction. Someone tells it, someone else remembers, everybody passes it on.
There's the Snake from MGS1 that we know, with an equally philosophical and badass line. I've missed you, my guy.
How could you come back to all this? Why keep fighting?
There's something my best friend said to me once.
What?
We're not tools of the government or anyone else. Fighting was the only thing I was good at, but at least I always fought for what I believed in.
We are so deprived playing as Raiden, man. Otacon tells Raiden that Liquid's body was the one used as a decoy after the tanker incident, as they're identical on a genetic level. Everyone believes Solid Snake had died. Yet more information to spangle our brains. Everyone's at it. Otacon tells us that the terrorists actually have his sister held up in Shell 2, which is why he's here. And Snake says they're not here under anyone's orders. They each have their own personal motives. Snake's being that he wants to stop all Metal Gears and avoid the mistakes made in the past. which Raiden just compares to terrorism. Fuck's sake. Raiden is initially surprised by this, stating that it's actually a military mission. He then calls Roy, saying that Metal Gear is active. Roy tells him to get to the president, as he's the only one that can still stop the nuke from launching. Raiden points out the conversation on Codec with Snake, that he is the real Solid Snake. Roy then says this:
"Because they were never a part of the simulation. They're an unknown factor."
Wait, what? Why does he keep saying simulation? Right now, our brains are completely up the wazoo, but when I first played this, I thought, and maybe others feel the same way, that this whole situation was a weird, over-the-top VR mission. He said, not part of the simulation twice now. That would explain Vamp and Fortune not being able to die, and Vamp being able to basically go full Jesus everywhere. I love how Kojima misdirects the player at every turn. The amount of directions this story could go in still is crazy, and it's all part of the fun. There's a reason this game is talked about so much. So many theories can be crafted based on the in-game evidence, or should I say misdirection, but I can say with almost certainty that this is not a simulation, despite said comments alluding to it. We shimmy our way across the bridge very carefully and sneak around the sides of the strut expert. We shimmy around Strut L, getting caught by some guards just window gazing for some reason, before endless ciphers come to nail us. I take out the guards and ciphers and continue on the way. We arrive at Shell 2 Core. We hear the following call between Olga and Solidus. She wants revenge on Snake for the tanker incident. Solidus is against this, telling her not to let personal feelings get in the way of the mission, which she says, screw that, but eventually accepts. She also says she doesn't trust Ocelot for, yeah, obvious reasons. She holds off on revenge to put the mission first. They mention the code confirmation for the nuke is in 1 hour before activating an electrical floor in front of the president's cell. Oh, how coincidental. Olga mentions she wants the ransom money and to head back to Russia when this is done, but we know there is no ransom money. She's being played like a damn fiddle. Roy calls us to remind us of the Shadow Moses VR training. Haha. Then tells us what we probably already know if we played MGS1 or if you're Raiden and have completed the Shadow Moses VR training. A health bar for Prez appears and we go looking for our old friend, the Nikita rocket launcher. When we go down, we see the area is flooded. Yes, we have a swimming sequence, people. Fun little detail here, if you shoot the cans they go absolutely flying, which is just fun. Anyway, time to dive. Once we're already underwater, Raiden says this:
Colonel, B1 is completely flooded from what I can see.
Yeah, no shit, Raiden. Roy's voice then changes again, almost like a robot as he describes the buttons that we need to press to swim.
Change your heading with the left stick. Up will take you up, down takes you lower, left and right to face those directions.
This happened earlier in the game too. It's a bit off, but at the time I put it down to being an issue with the voice acting or something. This game follows usual underwater mechanics. You have an oxygen bar that only lasts so long, and you need to come up for air in certain spots, and we'll also need to avoid landmines along the way. I don't know why I wrote in the script landmines, they're obviously underwater, so sea mines I guess. In this section we find a cute little Vulcan Raven figurine like we saw earlier, and some little rubber duckies floating in some places. I open a door before I'm accosted by the body of Peter Stillman. Raiden has nothing to say about this, and neither do I really. I guess it's a cool detail that recenters our understanding of where we are in the big shell and why it's flooded. This is where the bomb went off earlier that Stillman couldn't defuse. We grab the Nikita and head back up to save the Prez. We shoot the Nikita and I guide it through the vents like I've been doing this my whole life. First time, baby. The floor is disabled and we go to meet the Prez.
What are you... What the...
Bro, did he actually just grab us by the bussy? This game literally predicted the future here in a Simpsons-esque kind of way, and will do so in so many more ways as we progress. This one is so accurate and funny though, I've not seen anyone else mention it before. The president also calls out our skull suit and says that he thinks we came to kill him for his betrayal with the nuke. Raiden's saying that he's Foxhound and asking if he's alright, completely genuinely. Although this makes the president laugh as he knows, as do we, the player, that there is no Foxhound anymore. This doesn't add up to us yet, but to the president this lie means that he knows who sent us. We then jump on a codec call so that no one can listen in. The president admits to giving them the code, and if we asked him 2 hours ago, he was working for them. To Raiden's shock, he asks why he would do this. He responds by saying that he wants absolute power. Raiden kind of states the obvious. Surely the president of the United States has absolute power. He's the most powerful man in the world, surely. He responds by saying that he's just a figurehead, and that real power is held by the Patriots. Strap in for this one.
Patriots?
The truth behind this country.
I'm not surprised you've never heard of them. Very few are aware of their existence, even among those with code word clearance.
Huh?
Politics, the military, the economy, they control it all. They even choose who becomes president. Putting it simply, the Patriots rule this country.
No.
Hard to believe, isn't it? But it's the truth. The space defense, income tax reduction, and national missile defense programs. Every policy that's been credited to me was actually done according to their instructions.
Space defense was initiated by Congress.
That's what the Patriots want the country to believe. It's all a show. Democracy is just a filler for textbooks. Think about it. Do you actually believe that public opinion influences the government?
No.
This country is shaped and controlled as the Patriots see fit. The people are shown what they want to believe. What you call government is actually a well-staged production aimed at satisfying the public.
Huh?
Don't look at me like that. I'm legally sane, you know.
It's not your sanity that worries me.
Oh boy, there it is, baby. The conspiracy has been revealed. This is what we've been waiting for. Juicy, sweet political conspiracy, man. Here it is. In the flesh, in front of our eyes. One of the reasons we love these games is because of these totally plausible conspiracy theories that are actually based in real life. This could really happen, and who's to say it isn't happening? How would we know? Dancing in between truth and fiction, in that delicate gap between what we know and don't. The space where we could never really verify. This is one of the reasons why these stories are so good. The president wanted to join the Patriots, to not be a pawn anymore, so he wanted to force his way in with control of Metal Gear, threatening to tear down the facade of the Patriots if he wasn't. This was his bargaining chip. However, he realized that if the Patriots were not in control, then the world would exist in anarchy and chaos. When he tried to backtrack on his plans with Solidus, Solidus said that pawns can never become players. He has, in essence, fucked up. We learn that Solidus's true identity is that of George Sears. Remember the guy in Shadow Moses we spoke to, trying to drop bombs on us to cover it all up? Yeah, the previous president of the United States. The Patriots put him there, just like they did with old Johnson here. However, after the events of Shadow Moses, he fell out of favour with them for acting on his own, not as per their plans. We also learn that he sent in his most trusted man, Ocelot, to provoke Liquid to bring about the incident. Hence the post-credits scene of Ocelot speaking to the president. The whole of the first game was engineered by Solidus. The result of this was that he got the technical data on Rex, but also revealed the existence of Rex and the Genome Army to the world. The Patriots didn't like this, and he was forced to resign. Then Johnson came in, the new pawn. They discuss how the election race was just a well-scripted drama, a stage show to keep people believing. Johnson also reveals that Solidus's health was scheduled to fail him. This is referring to Foxdie, the same that afflicted Liquid, Decoy, Baker, and I assume Ames as almost a failsafe. We know that Snake essentially delivered this virus in MGS1, but it raises questions of how Ames died here. This for once has a simple answer. The Patriots in control of his nanomachines shut down his pacemaker, but before they could do this though, Solidus went underground with the help of Ocelot, gaining the support of Dead Cell and Galukovich, awaiting for the completion of the new Metal Gear project. He was going round 2 with the Patriots basically, with the same plan as the first. Same, but slightly different. Raiden says Metal Gear is already operational. The president says no, that was Ray. The new Metal Gear is called Arsenal, and we're in it as we speak, kind of. Arsenal Gear is massive, an impregnable moving fortress full of nukes. I don't know why when it said impregnable, my brain was like, yeah, I bet I could impregnate it. Just let me at it. Let me have one go on it. Protected by a shit ton of Rays that were mass produced. The irony that Ray was designed to be an anti-Metal Gear, now they're being used to protect the new Metal Gear. This ebb and flow of the development of Metal Gears resembles the arms races we've seen in actual history so far, but Arsenal Gear is innovative in a way, not only in scale but capability. Arsenal Gear has full access to the military's tactical network, allowing it to have full control over the whole nation's armed forces, including the nuke. Arsenal was created to be the core of the country, and Raiden says, what an idiotic weapon, but the president isn't finished. This is more than a traditional weapon.
To preserve the world as it is, it will establish a new form of control. The Patriots will use it to keep their place as the country's true rulers. Right now, they feel pressured and threatened.
By what?
They fear an overabundance of digital information. The world will drown in the coming flood of information, and they along with it. The Arsenal plans include a system to digitally manage the flow of information, making it possible to shape the truth for their own purposes. In short, the Arsenal system is the key.
Ayo, they want to control information and warfare using something called the GW system. At this stage, we don't know any more than what we just heard. The conspiracy does go deep though, and poor Raiden is realizing that his failure in this mission is going to mean a lot more than just some dead little Nemos in the bay. Shit has truly escalated. The president confirms that Solidus' plan to nuke the sky above Manhattan is part of his plan to create outer heaven. You know what that is, don't you, my fellow fans? We'll come back to that later. We learned that the football is actually key to activating Arsenal gear itself. And he tells us the only way to stop what at this stage is a threat to life as we know it, maybe, is to reach Emma Emmerich, Ottocon's sister. She's the only one who can stop it once it's been activated. She's in this building, down in the flooded area. We get security card 4 so we can get to her. The president gives us a virus that will disrupt the Arsenal gear system, and the president notes that this is modelled after Foxdie, but for computers. We need to get Emma to B2 to enter it and save the day. The president then suddenly tries and forces us to kill him to prevent the launching of the nuke and activation of Arsenal gear. Raiden resists before Ocelot just comes in and game ends him out of nowhere. The president's dying words are as follows.
Without free will, there is no difference between submission and rebellion. My only real choice is to put an end to this charade. Let me at least have the freedom to end it myself.
What are you?
Find Emma. Stop Arsenal. This is my last order as your commander-in-chief. I'm counting on you.
Yeah, that's cool as fuck. Got me feeling all ready to save the world and shit. There are so many twists and turns in this damn game, man. We'll just need to keep going and find the answers. But for now, let's do a check on how many sides there are to this dice. We have 1. Raiden, Roy and Rose. 2. Snake and Ottokon. 3. Solidus, tied loosely with Olga and her unit, although the call earlier revealed that they have different motives. 4. Dead Cell, who seem to be aligned with Solidus. 5. Ocelot, now showing that he has a different goal to Solidus, foiling the activation of the nuke. And 6. The Patriots. If you're confused, that's the point. We speak to Snake and Ottokon after this. They reveal that after Shadow Moses, the Patriots were not happy about Snake becoming a world-renowned hero. The Patriots never chose Snake to be that hero, and as a result they engineered the tanker incident to smear his name. Ottokon and Snake were set up, but that wasn't the entire reason for the tanker incident. Ottokon explains that Dolph had set up the Metal Gear program in opposition to the military, of his own will. We hear in the beginning of the speech he talks about corruption being the driver of this, so the Patriots killed 2 birds with 1 stone in an act of total control. Ottokon and Raiden then ask if Ocelot acted alone in the tanker incident while Solidus was underground, then what are they doing working together now? As we touched on a minute ago, they might be working together, but it seems like they won't be for long until their different motives are revealed. Snake interrupts to say that although the nuclear strike has been prevented, Arsenal has a massive payload of weaponry that we need to get a grip on before they do. Time to get grooving. Let's go get Ottocon's sister. It's mermaid time. Ottokon calls us to essentially tell us she hates water and can't swim. She almost drowned when she was 6, so she got some trauma from that. Ottokon was present for this, but was busy whilst she was drowning. Busy doing what, you may ask? I'm going to tell you later, and it sucks.
I was...
Alas, that, my friends, will be revealed, and it's super fucking weird, as is everything with Ottokon and all Ottokon-like characters in this game series. Long story short, that's going to be an issue. We'll deal with it later. Remember what we said about Raiden's mannerism? Why does he swim like this, man? I bet Snake swims like a proper bloke, but we never get to see that, so we'll never know. Anyway, from one weird thing to the next. In the next room, we meet Vamp again.
Get in the room and play Minecraft! Fucking little shit.
and he has this to say.
Hell had no vacancies.
We tried to pop a cap in his fruity ass, and he dodges it. He says that he can tell from our muscles what we're going to do next, allowing him to dodge bullets. This is obviously an effect of his nanomachines or something. I mean, it has to be. How else could he do that? I mean, the walking on water, I was tempted to explain away with it being Arsenal gear underneath, but then how did Ray jump out of the water? So many questions. I saw this proper abrasive explanation on a forum for this. Every bit of Earth was injected with nanomachines, even non-living things, so the water under Vamp responded to his need. It became more dense thanks to the nanomachines, to the point where it feels like you're stepping on sand. It was activated in that moment by the Patriots so that he could accomplish his mission. I also saw this other theory. There was another member of Dead Cell originally in the game who was cut. Why was he cut? Well, his name, yeah, it's probably his name. Chinaman. Oh my God! Chinaman's lore goes like this. Abducted as a child in Hanoi by a black market adoption agency, Chinaman was sold to an American buyer. After arriving in New York, he became the subject of discrimination and, after running away from his foster parents, went to the city's Chinatown. He would boast that he was more Chinese than Chinese and hated America and New York City with a passion. Chinaman later became a Navy SEALs swimmer and a special effects artist who specialized in Kung Fu and Qi-Kung, the latter of which he could use to control his body weight at will, allowing him to walk on water, walls, and ceilings. Chinaman was the most proficient swimmer in the SEALs, and he held the record for longest time spent underwater by a person. He possessed a full body tattoo of a dragon, which apparently came to life upon contact with the water. When the unit was liquidated in October 2008, Chinaman was among the members who were killed. Yeah, he was based off of Jet Li and New Kung Fu and stuff. Anyway, he was this mystic kind of guy, and as said, is able to control his own body weight at will, allowing him to walk on water and do all sorts of other supernatural bits and bobs. Now, this dude on the forum states that once they cut him out, canonically, Vamp gained his powers. Apparently said by Kojima in an interview, although I can't validate that, and it could just be misinformation fed to me by the Patriots. Assumably, Vamp gained his powers by licking the nanomachines off his dead body or something. But that's the closest thing we have to an explanation. Let me pose my own theory about this boss battle in particular. This room, the fight, all of it was meant to be fighting Chinaman. Seeing as he was a swimmer and a special effects artist, it would make sense that we'd fight him in the water after a swimming section. Vamp in this room actually makes less sense. What do vampires have to do with water? When he ran on water earlier, maybe it was meant to be Chinaman's scene too, and maybe he was meant to fly the Harrier in that fight. You see what just happened there? I fell into an MGS2 rabbit hole. I almost didn't make it back out. Another reason why I love this game. Writing this script, this is the first time I'd ever had that thought. Even after this much time, there's still interesting tidbits like that to explore. Vamp tells us the Arsenal gear is still armed with a purified hydrogen bomb. So the nuke storyline is back on, baby. This time the bomb is fucking huge by all accounts. Apparently Solidus doesn't even know about it. Vamp also gives some exposition on Dead Cell, how 6 months ago they were framed for the mass murder of civilians and their own allies. No one believes their story to the contrary, so they went on revenge on the group that did this. We can put the pieces together here. It was the Patriots. Raiden calls him insane, and Vamp rebukes.
You're insane.
Insane? We might be the only ones telling the truth.
Touché, Vamp. We hear that Arsenal gear is activated over the PA system, and then we get to fight him finally. It should be a quick fight, and I just end up taking him out by punching him. He says... Moving on, we call Snake and Otacon starts to open.
Talk about this later. Raiden, I think you'd better get moving.
It's mermaid time once again, before we emerge on the other side of the flooded hallway and find Little Miss Pissy Pants hiding in a locker, just like her older brother would in the previous game. Jeez, this family sucks. I don't blame her as much this time though, as Raiden just opened the door, shoving a gun in her face. We go into a codec call so no one can listen in, and it helps Emma to trust us. She takes our hand and... What was that about? There was something there between them both. Anyway, Raiden tries to convince Emma to go with him, which she eventually agrees to. She won't, however, come with us if she has to swim. She also has been injected with something in her legs, so she can't run or swim. Raiden then says,
"Put your ear against my chest and listen to my heartbeat.
Your heartbeat?
Okay, bit weird. Emma stops Raiden as she has to take off her glasses. Raiden asks her if she's trying to be different from all the other girls. Emma retorts no. Someone she liked used to wear glasses. Raiden's all like, ooh, what, your boyfriend? And she was like, no, someone important. We can gather from this that she means Hal. He's the iconic dude with the glasses in the series. What I can't gather though is the implication that the interest was more than friendly, that she fancied her brother. This is all while Raiden is seemingly making moves on her himself in his own weird way. After we get through the first corridor, Raiden and Emma sit down.
You did good.
I concentrated on your heartbeat.
Okay guys, what's going on here? Let me just... Oh, okay. Phew. Go ahead, I suppose. Emma recounts the story of her and Hal when they were younger. She said Raiden's heartbeat reminded her of him. A comfortable piece of information is revealed here that at least they were step-siblings. If the interest of this 4-year-old was more than just admiration, as it's alluded to.
We both wanted to be loved so much. So much that we used to pretend.
Pretend?
Yeah, we used to play house. My brother was the husband and I was the wife. But it was always just make-believe. We were only kids.
Raiden's all like,
I never had a family.
We call Roy, and the most iconic line in the series is uttered.
We've managed to avoid drowning. Good job.
Snake and Otacon are ready in the computer room, and we just need to get there. Not before Hal and EE have a brief conversation, before Snake cuts the crap, because it might be disgusting if there's a step-sibling romance brewing here. Thank you, Snake. Thank you very much. Also, side note, did Kojima predict the future of, you know, that orange and black website beginning with P? I accidentally RKO Emma and she's just sat there like, man, I'm dead. I drag her through to the next room. I hold her hand and we walk her nicely into the next room. In the cutscene, we show Emma the virus disc and she already recognizes it, saying that she created it. Why do we have it? We share the news that the president is dead. Emma explains the virus and how it works, and then goes on to explain what the GW system is. So listen to this. Strap in, because it's a long one.
It's a massive data processing system capable of controlling information on a global scale.
A data processing system?
That's right. The system's a social device for maintaining the Patriots' control.
You've lost me.
Well, in this day and age, information emerges from every direction and is freely distributed. A variety of information gathered by servers employing the latest in high-speed communication networks and P2P technology is rapidly circulated to individuals. In fact, the speed of this circulation process is accelerating on an almost daily basis. The Patriots seem to be afraid of this development. Apparently, they believe that their role will shift from dominant to dominated.
Huh?
Let me give you an example. You're aware of Solid Snake's anti-Metal Gear activities, aren't you?
Yeah, I know a little about it.
Well, that's just a small sample of uncontrolled information. I can guarantee you the Patriots did not want Solid Snake's name publicized. Now, look at it like this. Political scandal, corporate corruption, up until now, the Patriots have managed to keep a lid on these and other self-serving events. But with their existing data processing system, they're no longer able to effectively control the flow of information generated at the individual level. With the newly created system, they can fully regulate digital information. High-level information can be categorized in stages, given clearance levels, and deleted as necessary, never to be seen by the public. By deleting such information, the Patriots can shape the course of history as they see fit.
Somebody's bound to catch on.
No, the memory capacity, not to mention the lifespan of the average individual, is extremely limited. On the other hand, digital information lasts virtually forever. It doesn't deteriorate.
So?
The alphabet, 26 letters, right? It could have been 30 letters. What if the 4 deleted letters were controlled by a program?
Impossible.
It's not. In fact, something similar is already underway. Do you know how many genes exist in an individual?
About 30 to 40,000?
Right. That's what was announced at the turn of the century. But there's actually 100,000 according to the original theory advanced by the scientific community. Information regarding the remaining 60,000 was suppressed by the Patriots.
No.
Why? How would you know? Do you know what a gene looks like? Did you count them yourself?
There are research organizations.
Of course. And their reports have already been subtly altered. They're even beginning to believe the doctored reports. GW is a system that allows the Patriots to decide what will be recorded in tomorrow's history.
So what we're talking about is one huge censorship system for deleting information which might be inconvenient to the Patriots.
Exactly. The actual physical core for handling the task, GW, is installed in Arsenal. It's the only system in the world with an optic neural AI that has a parallel processing capacity of 980 trillion Hammets.
I suppose that being a specialist in neural AI and complex logic played a significant role in your association with the Metal Gear project.
That's not the only reason.
What do you mean? I guess there are plenty of other reasons.
Yes, there are.
I understand.
Do you?
So Arsenal Gear was actually designed to protect the GW system, wasn't it?
Yes. It's armed with everything, including nuclear weapons, and is fully equipped with cyber-terrorist countermeasures. Physically and logically, it's the ultimate fortress for housing GW.
But is the AI actually capable of controlling everything?
No. GW is only the system's core. It's only for deciding what data is stored or deleted. The actual subsystem for executing the task exists within our social structure.
What?
Do you remember the panic that gripped the computer industry prior to the end of the century?
You mean the Y2K problem?
That's right. If you recall, our government supplied the world with a countermeasure program, using the internet at full capacity. The program was distributed to every governmental organization, every key facility throughout the world. In addition, the same program was included in an OS application for distribution among the public.
Let me guess. The Y2K countermeasure contained a program designed by the Patriots.
Yes, and everything supplied from that day onward contains the same program.
Impossible.
Do you know how a computer operates? Do you really know the basic principles on how data is exchanged? Nobody's aware of it, but there's a subsystem in place, and it's about to be activated.
Is that why Solidus wants to burn out every electrical circuit in Manhattan with a nuclear blast?
Probably. But the overall system isn't actually complete.
What?
It still lacks the necessary factors for judging situations. I heard they were planning a major experiment in the next few days to provide complex data for GW to study. And suddenly all this happens.
Emma, it's not your fault. If it wasn't for the terrorists...
Yeah, you're right. Well, I think that's about all I know.
Right. Thanks. I think we'd better head for the computer room.
Let me remind you that this came out in 2001. Let that sink in. Kojima set his game in 2009 and predicted the emergence of the digital age. It's not only that he predicted that information would become more freely distributed, unregulated and plentiful, he had the foresight to build a whole story around the problems that would arise from it. He then wraps his conspiracy story around this and predicts how information could be used as a weapon to control the world, much like actual weapons have been in the past. He poses the question, how would we know? How would we know if the information we were being fed was a lie? Were we there in history to denounce the events in our textbooks? Why do we trust the information we are given? Do we even know who it came from? And how can we trust them if we do? What if there were hidden letters in the alphabet, so that those in the know could communicate in secret outside of our knowledge? What if there were more genes in the human body that we were not aware of? Once again, the longer that time goes on, the more evidence there is to suggest that Kojima got this spot on. Today we live in an age where there is more information flying around than we know what to do with. It's hard to establish truth from it. There seems to be many forms of truth now touted from many different sources. Depending on your beliefs, you can always find something online to back it up. E.g., when you Google, "My tum-tum hurts, am I going to die?" Google can give you results that either confirm your beliefs or deny your beliefs. That's a very simple example, but we see it with American news networks, especially when Biden decided to not run for president. The way they spoke about him before and after was polar opposites. In some instances, you would see facts being changed day to day from the same news networks that you trust. You might think this is impossible, but it's literally happening. I suggest you check out Ride the News or Rocker News on Instagram. Check out this video.
Her first visit to the U.S.-Mexico border region since she was appointed as the border czar by President Biden.
What he said about Harris and immigration was not true. She was never appointed border czar.
They were very critical of Kamala Harris, especially in her role as border czar.
Now, she wasn't the border czar. That's what Republicans labeled.
Kamala Harris, who was appointed as the border czar.
Up against his folks lying about her border record, calling her a border czar.
If they weren't planning to address it in a major way, do not make her your border czar.
There has been so much criticism against Kamala Harris
You know, she was the border czar.
The Biden team didn't declare her the border czar. They wanted her to work on kind of the root causes of immigration.
Vice President Kamala Harris to be the border czar.
Vice President Harris was not a border czar.
Kojima notes that our lifespans are limited, and our memories even more so. No one will notice, and for the most part, that's true in today's world as we've just seen. This is essentially a sci-fi version of George Orwell's 1984, a story about a government obsessed with control, so much so that they have a Ministry of Truth, where people work day by day to control information that is fed to the public. One day, they can be allied with one country and at war with another. The next day, it can be the other way round, and the people are so conditioned that they believe it, or at least live as though they believe it, never uttering a word against today's truth. Emma poses in this conversation that this would be possible with Arsenal gear and the GWAI, and the acts to control information would be enacted utilizing our social structure. Jesus, this game is insane, isn't it? The way it makes you think and draw connection even 23 years later is why it only gets more accurate with age. No one would even notice if we were being fed fake information. So, is it so crazy to think now that the information you receive is being controlled to control your thought with social media algorithms that, by the way, listen to your conversations and provide you targeted adverts? Why would you trust that they were giving you the correct information or helpful information and not information designed to control you or make you act in a certain way? It's mind-blowing. We'll put a pin in that for now. Time to go swimming.
You're not only cute, but smart too.
Oh, I'm much more than cute.
No, stop that now, you two. On the other side, there's like a butt ton of sea lice. This whole segment of saving Emma is pretty weird. Anyway, she's scared of the lice and you'll need to spray them away with the bomb coolant. Then Emma will get in the elevator with you. This next floor, they put a few guards this time, but they're easy to take out. We then slowly tiptoe with Emma out the other side, and it's now evening time and the sun is setting on the big shell. We take out some ciphers and head over the repaired bridge. There is a fire blocking our path on one side and the door is broken on the other. I get a message on that cell phone that the ninja gave me. Yes, of course. Use the coolant to put out the fire. Weird how much this coolant actually does in this game. It's like the answer to every puzzle. We get to the door and luckily Emma has a level 5 card. We take out some guards and then enter into a cutscene. We need to get to the bottom of Strut L as the old connecting bridge has been destroyed. We're going to walk on top of the oil fence, but before that though, we need to climb down a very long ladder. Kojima loves these. And now I see why Emma's wearing shorts. When we get to the bottom, Emma starts staring directly at the sun.
It burns.
Before we survey the area. This is a sniper mission, and we're going to have to cover her while she walks across. Snake calls us to tell us about the claymores likely laid on the walkway, but I must have just been monging at this point and completely didn't listen, so... Good thing is, it didn't happen more than once. Okay, this time I actually realise, and Emma's getting across without hitch. Snake is also on strut E at this point, providing support. So I take the time to practice my aim on some of the seagulls. We then see Vamp, as he's still alive, get used to that, do his usual fruity business and take Emma hostage. We're handed control. I call Snake, who's just like... So I pop the dude a couple of times. Snake rushes out to help her, action hero style, shooting a cipher on the way. Raiden gets up. Before this, he was super confident in his abilities, referencing the VR training. But as Snake said before, no one gets hurt in VR. You won't feel this emotion when someone does in VR. Raiden rushes across the walkway and struts E. Snake calls us while Emma is working on GW's defense. We need to get this disc to her as she's running out of time. When we get down to the computer room, Emma ain't looking too good. No time for sadness though. Snake wants to put that disc in the computer. The upload is interrupted before it is fully complete. Otacon suggesting that maybe this disc was tampered with after Emma made it. Snake asks if it will still work. Otacon has no idea. Otacon lies to Emma, confirming that everything is alright and is working, although it isn't. He lets her die thinking that she saved the day. Emma then almost confesses her love to Otacon, but stops short, saying she always wanted to see him again. Thank God she stopped short. That would have been a bit criminal. We then get an emotional score and a peaceful backdrop of the big shell. We hear Emma's voice. She said she did everything she did because she wanted to follow in Otacon's footsteps, to be closer to him. Then she says she always wanted him to look at her as a woman. No, stop, Emma. Expire already. Stop being weird, please. She asks him to call her Emma before taking off his glasses and game ending. Regardless of the weird insinuations, this is a sad moment. Snake and Raiden stay quiet, respectfully. Otacon says that he was seduced by her mother, i.e. the wife of his dad, and had a romantic relationship with her. Right, pause. Why is this family so messed up, man? And Otacon is the worst of the bunch. You know earlier when Emma was saying how she almost drowned as a kid? Yeah, Otacon was in his room. He said he was busy. Yeah, he was boinking her mum while she was almost drowning. This dude sucks. This might be an unpopular opinion, but he does. The parrot then says Hal's name. He probably the parrot too whilst no one was looking. Hal is crying. I don't care. We hear over the intercom that Arsenal gear is ready to go. The big shell will be detached and will sink. We need to get the hostages off. And Otacon, when I say get them off, I mean remove them from the big shell and deliver them safely to home soil, okay? Just in case that needs clarifying. Otacon will take the cam off and pack it full of hostages. Snake and Raiden need a way into Arsenal gear. We then have an emotional cutaway as Otacon hears Wolves crying that he's always the survivor, referencing the death of Sniper Wolf in the first game that he was in a relationship with. Snake gives Otacon a pep talk and we get this awesome walk-off cutscene of the boys. Let's fucking go. Oh yeah, bye Emma. Guess you'll just go down with the big shell. Snake and Otacon then do this. This is a sick moment from two sick men by two very different meanings of the word. As Otacon walks off, the parrot is saying, Hal, I miss you, which makes him cry. I would feel bad for the man if at this point I wasn't convinced that they had a romantic relationship together that we just don't know about. Snake gives us the disc and the ninja jumps down and threatens us. Snake isn't doing anything. He says, bedtime, Raiden. Has he betrayed us?
You're changing sides now? Change sides? I don't recall saying I was on yours.
The ninja is revealed to be Olga, shortly before she bamboozles us with her electric sword. Olga and Snake probably met whilst we were getting Emma, and in that meeting it's revealed later that they came to an understanding and truth that it wasn't Snake who killed her father. It's assumed Snake and Olga formed some sort of alliance at this point, but for what reason at this time, we don't know. We get a shot of the big shell going down, and the Shining-esque shot of water flooding the halls. We see Otacon piloting the chopper away, assumably with the hostages. Rose calls us and asks us to save, although we're not there on the call right now. We awaken. Oh yeah, we've seen this before, haven't we, my fellow MGS fans? Otacon is giving a rundown of who we are to Solidus. There is absolutely no information on who we are anywhere. We are a complete unknown in all forms of records available. Not before Solidus interjects, saying that he does know us, and he calls us Jack the Ripper. Ocelot is puzzled. Solidus asks if we remember him. He scans us with his hentai tentacles to reveal that we have a high quantity of cerebral implants, and if they being the Patriots, altered our memory too. Solidus calls us his son and says that he taught us everything. What is this? Another twist? Oh, give me more, Daddy Kojima. Raiden is as perplexed as us at the moment, and he asks, you know me? Solidus affirms. Listen to this.
The 80s. A civil war. You were one of the best among the child soldiers that fought in that conflict. When you were barely 10 years old, you became the platoon leader of the small boy unit. At the time, your outstanding kill record earned you several nicknames, including White Devil and Jack the Ripper. Jack, I was your godfather. I named you. When the war ended, you disappeared from the relief center. I wondered what happened to you. I should have known they would recruit you.
First of all, I just want to highlight that the cinematography in these cutaways is also cool. The contrast of what at the time was high fidelity graphics and the manga-esque caricatures in these cutaways works really well, along with the narration and sound effects. It's good cinema. Secondly, this gives us the answer on Raiden's backstory. He was a child soldier, a brutal killer. Solidus adopted/abducted him from the battlefield before he disappeared from the relief center that he was brought to. One cool thing to note is that everyone in the game has been thinking Raiden is this sort of green rookie, but he's even dirtier than Snake, killing in wars since he was a young boy, earning the nickname White Devil and Jack the Ripper. He suggests that the Patriots abducted us, and suddenly it becomes a bit clearer. We've been sent in by the Patriots to stop Solidus under the belief that we worked for Foxhound, a non-existent organization. Everyone knew this but us. us being Raiden. We get to ponder on this for some time as Ocelot's arm starts playing up. Ocelot says they plan to attack soon, and the troops are being refitted with arsenal gear, arsenal gear, before saying to Solidus that he's the spitting image of Big Boss with his one eye, a comment we only realize the accuracy of in later games. This makes Solidus laugh. Ocelot then says this whole thing is nostalgic, and maintains eye contact despite Raiden having his winky out. He takes the disc from us, and Olga enters the room. Ocelot leaves, and Olga speaks to us on the codec. We then get the truth of why Olga as the ninja has been helping us. She had two roles to play, the leader of the Russian mercenaries, but also as support sent by the Patriots to help Raiden. This was likely discussed when she met Snake off screen before knocking us out. Without this information, it wouldn't make too much sense why her and Snake would team up. Why is she helping Raiden? Because the Patriots have her daughter. Yeah, remember all the way back in the town commission? She was pregnant, right? They will kill her child if Raiden is killed. It's a geniusly engineered situation to increase their chances of Raiden being successful, and shows the extent of their power. As Olga noted, the hospital she gave birth in was controlled by the Patriots too. She's never even met her own child. Yet another heart-wrenching reveal, she's under the total control of the Patriots here. Olga confirms that she realizes now that Snake wasn't responsible for her father's death, as we said earlier. They teamed up for mutual gain. Long story short, Olga's kid's life is tied to Raiden's vital signs, so she'll do everything to make sure that we don't die. She then mentions that we're all just pawns for something called the S3 plan. Olga says that we don't have time to discuss what this is, but oh boy, if you think it's been crazy, now it's about to get a lot crazier. She confirms Snake has our gear and we need to go meet him up ahead. She also confirms that not even Snake can take down this Metal Gear. Instead, we'll need to stop the people running it, i.e. Solidus. She punches us in the tum-tum before leaving. We then get a call from Raiden. Rose talks about what Solidus said. She can't believe it. Raiden says he used to see his past in his nightmares, but he wasn't sure if it was real. Rose asks why he didn't tell her. He says because she couldn't begin to understand, and that he didn't want her to get hurt. Listen to this interaction.
When the Civil War ended, those of us who survived were taken in by NGOs. They gave me a new life in the States. I can't complain. But nothing's changed. The only people who have no problem with my past have secrets and agendas of their own. Terrible nightmares. Every night. I can never forget.
Jack.
I'm afraid of the night. That's why I don't sleep next to you.
You should have told me.
Told you what? That I'm a killer? And always have been?
No. No.
What I hate more than anything else in the world is my own past. I didn't want you or anyone to know about it. Now I know why I was chosen for this mission. No one can take him on, take him down, except me. I've been kept alive this long for this. I knew as soon as I saw Solidus.
Jack, I love you the way you are now. You have to believe me.
Once again, not to state the obvious, but child soldiers are real things. The experience that he's relating is there or thereabouts with what happens to kids in some countries to this day. It's another example of why MGS is so impactful. It's based in reality, at least its messages are. This is the sad reality we live in, and this monologue along with the accompanying music is really impactful, whilst tying up most of the questions we've had about Raiden in this game. This confirmation has awoken a killer in Raiden. As we can hear, his whole voice has changed. His story has turned into one of revenge. It's interesting that Raiden is opening up about this to Rose, but he's also opening up to us. He says he knew who Solidus was when he saw him on the bridge way back when. We didn't get a hint of the way he was feeling at all, and he never mentioned any nightmares. It's not often the character we play as keeps us in the dark. Just a cool point I thought was worth highlighting and furthers the agenda that everything in this game is either truth withheld or misinformation. Rose tries to offer support. She wants to share his burden. She hints that she's done some bad things too, but Raiden is so tied up in his own trauma he doesn't even realize what she's trying to say. She's kind of trying to make it all about her, so fuck her, I guess. I then call her to save, and she's all like,
"Hey, Jack,"
which I found to be quite funny and a bit of a turn of pace in the emotional conversation we were just having. Funny detail, if you press yourself up against the torture machine, we see this conveniently placed soda can and straw. Anyway, quick recap on who the players are in this and whose side they're on, as it's changed pretty dramatically again. We have Raiden, Rose and Roy, but we're unclear at this stage where Rose and Roy sit. Are they the Patriots? Snake, Otacon, allied with Olga temporarily it seems. Olga acting in her own interests whilst playing the side she needs to keep Raiden safe, to keep her child alive. The Patriots having an invisible hand in most of what's going on it seems, and seemingly sent in Raiden and Ames and Olga. Solidus, our daddy, so it seems, but still the main antagonist. Ocelot, who the fuck knows at this point what side he's on? Why is no one suspicious of him like ever? Dead Cell, seemingly allied with Solidus, but not seen together since the Harrier fight, and seemingly have different motivations. So yeah, it's getting pretty messy, and it all adds to that theme of confusion and misinformation that it's been building all game long. And in my opinion, this is done at the perfect pace, now approaching a tangible crescendo. We do some flopping around in the torture room before exiting. Unlike in MGS1, we are stripped butt naked rather than just half, and we do not get our gear back. This is pretty humiliating for our protagonist. No time to think about that though, as this is where we get some clarity on Roy and Rose and the Patriots. As soon as we step out into Arsenal Gear's jejunum, which apparently is the middle part of the intestine, we get a call from Roy. His voice is distorted and he's acting a little sus. We once again hear the line that Snake was never factored into the simulation. We've heard that before. What does it mean though? We ask him if he's under orders from the Patriots, to which he replies that our mission is to infiltrate and disarm the terrorists. The veil is starting to drop, but we've heard the term role be used before by the president. Why is this important? Because role implies a plan, a bigger picture that we're merely a part of, a calculated set of actions that have been considered, and something that interfaces with other parts for a grander output. What is it called when you get a part in a play? A role? Is this all just a grand play or a show? Is this what the Colonel means by simulation? Roy also breaks the fourth wall, saying that this is a type of role-playing game and expects us to put in a perfect performance. This is a classic fourth wall break from Kojima, and oh boy, are we just getting started with this. Raiden then says that he realized something. He never met the Colonel in person. This is a huge revelation, but before we have time to pry or worry about that anymore, the Colonel says,
"No more questions. We have Rosemary."
Oh boy. Anyway, we out here covering our balls and trying not to die. Wait, why does Raiden stand on his tiptoes though? Ugh, fucking nerd. Never mind. We need to sneak by some new enemies. These dudes are called Tengus and are what Olga referenced earlier in the game when discussing the ninja. They're much harder than the previous mobs in the big shell and aesthetically are much more intimidating. You'll notice under Raiden's feet that when he walks, the floor lights up in octagonal patterns, similar to the layout of the big shell. I don't know what this means, but it's a cool link. Why it lights up beneath his feet is a whole nother story or theory that feeds into whether or not we're in a simulation. Building on that, if we enter and exit the door that we just came through multiple times, we see the name of the rooms will change. We see, and get ready for some bad pronunciation, Aoyama ni Chom, which is a pedestrian crossing in Aoyama, Azabu Juban, a residential town in Minato, a suburb of Tokyo, Funabashi City, a city in the Chiba prefecture of Japan, and New York 52nd Street, a 2-mile stretch of road in New York, of course. So yeah, I guess that's 2 extra points to the this is a simulation theory, but if you think you're starting to get answers, oh boy, you're not. Would Kojima give away the answers to this story at this point in the game? Or is it yet another twist in the game that's all about mindfucking you? Nonetheless, most players won't see this. Something that's just occurred to me, by the way, is that the Tengus and Solidus all have P90s, and this is the weapon that the Secret Service use in America, which kind of plays in and ties into the fact that the Secret Service obviously are a very secretive organization protecting the president. These guys in Arsenal gear are essentially the Secret Service of the enemies, right? So they're using Secret Service weapons that the American Secret Service use. It's quite an interesting choice that they gave them P90s and then they didn't give any other enemies in the game P90s. It draws that connection between these are a secret set of enemies, much like the Secret Service are, by using the same weapons. We head up the stairs and get a call.
Raiden, turn the game console off right now.
What did you say?
The mission is a failure. Cut the power right now.
What's wrong with you?
Don't worry, it's a game. It's a game just like usual.
You'll ruin your eyes playing so close to the TV.
What are you talking about?
Raiden, something happened to me last Thursday when I was driving home. I had a couple of miles to go. I looked up and saw a glowing orange object in the sky to the east. It was moving very irregularly. Suddenly, there was intense light all around me, and when I came to, I was home. What do you think happened to me?
Huh?
Fine. Forget it.
I get chills every time I experience this scene. It's so unsettling, so out of nowhere, so incoherent. This is why the word mindfuck was created, but accompanied with the vulnerability we're feeling from being naked, the seemingly transient environment we're in at this time, and the eerie soundtrack. This shook me first time round, and I still get chills playing through it now. We get a barrage of calls to this nature.
Infiltrate the enemy fortress, Outer Heaven. Destroy the final weapon, Metal Gear.
Ugh, why is that so unsettling? The game is referencing previous games' stories in a dark satire kind of way. You know what it does? It takes away the enjoyment of playing the game. We enjoy playing as the hero in the action game. It's escapism. We're fully bought into it at this stage. We're the heroes saving the world. We choose to shoot and the actions to take and leave feeling amazing, like we actually did it. When you have a distorted AI telling you what to do and almost satirically referencing the previous game's story, and it just so happens to be basically the same story every game, it's like an attack on our intelligence. To me, as the player, it's saying, look at you, we put out the same story every time to destroy Metal Gear, and we tell you what to do throughout it, and you're so invested in it that you think you're the hero, when you're actually just a puppet, pressing the buttons we set up for you to press to create that illusion. You don't even realize. This direct address of the similarities in the game's story shatters the enjoyment we get by pointing out how obviously similar the stories are. How stupid are you to buy into it every time? I don't know. That's just what I took away from this call. I know everyone will interpret it differently, and maybe I'm over-analyzing, but I really enjoy the depth of how it made me feel, even if it wasn't necessarily a positive feeling. The next call from Roy is referencing a VR mission where we need to save Meryl, further adding to the confusion, and the fact that Raiden was trained on the very VR missions that were in MGS1, a cool fourth wall break as it blurs the line between us, the player, who essentially is trained on these missions, and Raiden, who was also trained on these missions. The next call we get is,
I hear it's amazing when the famous purple stuffed worm in Flapjaw space with the tuning fork does a raw blink on Harry Carey rock. I need scissors. 61.
Yeah, look, all I'm going to say is young Bag was falling apart at the seams here. My young mind was beaten to a pulp from all angles, and I did not need to see that side profile of the Colonel. The next room, the ascending colon, is a long and cylindrical hallway. Roy calls us to tell us to infiltrate Fortress Gallowade and destroy Metal Gear. Gallowade? What game is that from? It's not a location in any of the mainline games. No. Roy is referencing a non-canonical Game Boy Color entry in the Metal Gear series that came out in the year 2000, Ghost Babel. This is Kojima just being Kojima here. I can imagine him laughing as he wildly misdirects us yet again. But wait, what does it say on the wiki? Ghost Babel uses a stage-based structure with a total of 13 stages. After completing a stage, the player's performance is graded from terrible to excellent. The player can replay previously completed stages in the stage select mode for a higher ranking. After the game is completed, a special game mode becomes available where the player can replay the stages with new objectives, such as collecting hidden Foxhound emblems, or modifiers, such as time limits and weapon restrictions. After completing all these stages, the participant in VR training is addressed as Jack. Jack? No fucking way. No way. That suggests that the whole non-canonical Ghost Babel game was not only canonical, but just another simulation played by Raiden, who we know is Jack, as part of his VR training. Can it be? But it's not canonical. Oh my god, Kojima, can you fucking not for a minute? I hope I've done enough to convey to you, the viewer, if not already in agreement, why Kojima is so well renowned, and why MGS2 10x's the narrative levels seen in the previous game. I want to point out that this is incredibly respectable. There is no second album syndrome here. Kojima smashes the story out the water, once again bravely going where no developer has gone before, and crafts a narrative that blurs the lines between good and evil, truth and lies, fiction and non-fiction, canon and non-canon, all while maintaining the emotion and impact of what made the first game so good. It's incredible. The next call is really unsettling as we see the Colonel's image start to distort into that of a skeleton, once again telling us that we've played the game for a long time and that we should turn off the console. The next call is Japanese words just rapid fired at us. It's intense to go through all of this in real time and builds the player's anxieties sadistically, tearing down the structure of the interactions we're used to in all of the game so far. We head back down the hallway, trying both locked doors repetitively. What the fuck is that? A voyeuristic video of a woman sleeping is now on our radar. Kojima, please stop. I'm already dead.
Memory or clematis plants juice and cause a rash. When doing them, it's a good idea to wear gloves.
Separating ourselves from the anxiety for a second, I think it's fair to say that we're no longer talking to the real Colonel anymore. Something's gone wrong since we came down to Arsenal gear, but we don't know what. We know the Patriots are involved, but that's it really. We get a call from Rose and she says the following.
2 years ago, it wasn't a coincidence. I was ordered to keep an eye on you.
Keep an eye on me?
Yes, by the Patriots.
You're a spy?
I suppose. Yes. It's an ugly word. Are you still there?
Was sleeping with me a part of the job?
I fell in love with you.
How could anyone?
I can't excuse what I did. I've reported every detail of your personal life to them these 2 years. What you did, said, everything.
Must have been fun.
But some things I didn't tell anyone. Like what I felt for you.
So that's why you were involved in this mission. I should have known. Why else would they toss an analyst into the mix at the last minute?
I'm sorry. I know what I did was wrong.
No matter where I go, I get used.
I reinvented myself to suit your tastes. Hairstyle, clothes, the way I moved, things I talked about. You say you love the color of my hair, my eyes. They're not even real.
You must have gone over my psych profile with a fine-tooth comb.
It was my job.
Great performance. Had me completely fooled.
What I really wanted was for you to see the real me. It hurt to play out this artificial romance. It was worse to lie to myself than to you. The more love you gave me, the more it hurt. Because I knew the person you loved was just a character.
So it was artificial on my end too. It was just a game, not the real thing.
Oh, Jack.
I feel better knowing that.
What?
I was in love.
Raiden takes this like a badass, to be honest. His whole world has started crumbling around him in the last 30 minutes, and he's like, oh, that wasn't real love? No sweat. If it wasn't real, then why would I be upset about it? How can I be sad about losing something that wasn't real? He takes comfort in it. Aside from that, this shows the extent of the Patriots' control. They are front and center of this story now. We're starting to see that they control everything. Rose closes the conversation with another bombshell.
Fall in love with you. That wasn't an act.
You expect me to believe that? It's okay. You had your reasons, right? Hey, I understand, but I have nothing left to—
Jack!
What?
I'm carrying. I'm pregnant, Jack.
Rose! What's going on?
Why did her voice sound like that? Was that real? Or just another part of the Patriots' plan to control us? Is it suggesting by the distorted voice and the way she's cut off that this isn't real? How can we know? This part of the call is another bit that gave me chills. And despite Raiden's previous hardiness, this gets an emotional rise out of him too. Kojima, you've done it again. The call ends and we hear Snake telling us it's amazing how we walked around like that. He steps out from the wall, unfolding his arms, looking fucking badass. And the musical score emphasizes the reveal. Solid Snake is back, baby, and in his sneaking suit, all kitted out and ready to kick some ass. And Raiden, naked, just... Bro, that sneeze was so dumb, man. Despite Raiden's character arc being on the up, he still pales in insignificance to the Solid Snake, and that's what this scene is meant to portray. Anyway, Snake gives us our gear back. We jump on a codec call. Snake explains that he had to use us as bait to gain access to Arsenal, again reinforcing the gap in what I'm going to call the hero-ness between them two. We were literally used as bait by Snake. Snake tells us that Arsenal gear is headed to Manhattan, but he's not sure what the plan is once they get there. All he knows is that they need to deal with it. He does know that there are 25 Metal Gears up ahead, admitting he hasn't faced that many Metal Gears before, but he thinks he can deal with it. What a fucking legend, man. Just saying, yeah, 25 Metal Gears should be alright. Raiden obviously disagrees. He gives Raiden a sword from Olga, and this is the inception of Raiden becoming the cool version of Raiden we see in the future series. After a quick tutorial, we're back in control. I accidentally knock into Snake, and he pushes me over. I retaliate and he chases me down and kicks my ass. No, God! No, God! I recover for a sec whilst he breathes on my face, fogging up the camera. Snake then says if we run out of ammo we can have this, referencing the infinite ammo bandana. But wait, he had the stealth camo at the beginning, which I thought confirmed that Meryl died canonically. But this little detail I remember gave me hope back in the day that we would see her again. A nice fourth wall break and touch for returning players. Raiden asks Snake if he ever enjoyed killing someone, Raiden saying that he struggles to tell what's real and what's just a game. Snake says that's an effect of VR training that we know Raiden has gone through and may still be going through. Raiden is also going through what I think is depersonalization or derealization. Depersonalization is where you have a feeling of being outside yourself and observing your actions, feelings, and thoughts from a distance. Derealization is where you feel the world is unreal. People and things around you may seem lifeless or foggy. I think this is a result of the attack on his psyche that we've seen in this most recent chapter of the game, and what the constant misinformation through the game has been building to. He's probably having a psychotic break as he has no idea what's real or not. He talks to Snake about his past, or what he thinks is his past as a child soldier, referencing his name as Jack the Ripper, a dirty reminder of a past mistake. This is similar language to how Snake and Liquid were described in MGS1, another link to Shadow Moses. Snake rolls off some action hero dialogue in his iconic voice that I just can't get enough of. Listen to this.
Legends don't mean a whole lot. I was just a name to exploit, just like you.
People will remember only the good part, the right part of what you did.
There's no right part in murder, not ever. And we're not in this to make a name for ourselves.
Then what are you and Otacon fighting for?
A future? You can stop being part of a mistake, starting now.
God, he's just the best character in gaming history, is he not? We get a call from Otacon. He's got the hostages off the big shell safely. Raiden tells him about the Colonel's codec calls, saying how strange they were. Otacon says he'll look into it for us, sharing his codec frequency. We get spotted by a cipher, and suddenly we're back into action mode. This is one of my favourite scenes of the game for a few reasons. The music is, of course, cool as fuck. We get a sword to slash up the guards whilst fighting alongside the legendary Solid Snake against heaps of Tengu ninjas and guards. Snake isn't just a bystander in this, and he actually kills a lot of guards. I'm glad they had him actually contributing to this rather than letting the player do the work as most games do, as it's in keeping with his character as a legend that he would probably get the highest body count in this encounter and have no trouble doing so. Otacon calls us to tell us that he found the location of where Roy's transmissions were coming from. It's coming from inside Arsenal gear, another similarity to MGS1 with Miller. However, this time Otacon notes that the encryption protocol is the same as that of the Arsenal AI we've heard so much about, this GW. Just want to point out GW stands for George Washington, I think, and it's funny also how our game started on the George Washington Bridge with both Snake and the cutscene before we start playing as Raiden. Just an interesting coincidence maybe. Roy is confirmed to not be the real Roy. The thing we've been talking to is a projection from our own mind. It's not said here, but this is achievable by the Patriots having access to our nanomachines. It's projected our expectations into reality. Why Roy? Because Raiden was trained on the VR missions from Shadow Moses. It all makes sense. I also love the way Snake butts in to holster Raiden back into reality.
Raiden.
Snake, what's happening around here?
I don't know. What I do know is that you're standing right here in front of me. Not an illusion. Flesh and blood.
Huh?
It's your call. You can drop this if you want.
No, I can't do that. Let's go.
We enter the sigmoid colon, and get a call from Roy who says they've got Rose held captive. Snake intervenes again to keep Raiden stable, stating that Roy isn't real, and that means they can't have Rose. But Raiden then asks if Rose is real. How can he be sure? Despite Snake's attempts, he's struggling to keep Raiden focused, and you can tell Raiden's starting to doubt everything around him, Descartes style. He even doubts the information he's receiving from Snake and Otacon. How can he be sure that they're real, or that the information he's just received from them is? We move into the next room. Tengus drop down in epic style. We're surrounded. There are holograms appearing all around the room, with the word caution being seen like the alert status we've seen previously. We then get a mission failed, or a fission mail, with an option to emit instead of exit, but the game carries on and we have to keep fighting the Tengu in the top left corner of the screen. This happens one more time, adding to the sense that reality is breaking down around us. Everything is distorted. What even is real right now? The only thing to us as the character that we feel is real is the fact that we're with Snake. Fortune enters and has this to say.
Fortune.
It's been a long wait, Solid Snake. The root of all my sorrows.
What?
2 years ago, you killed my father. That was the beginning of hell for us. Everyone I love has been taken from me one by one, and no matter how hard I try, I can't follow them. An endless nightmare. The only thing we live for is to see it end. Our wait is almost over.
You can't be serious about firing the nuke.
Since no one can kill me, I may as well kill everyone I can. Starting with you, Solid Snake.
Damn! Looks like I'm today's pick. You go on ahead.
Fortune doesn't want anything but death. She doesn't even address Raiden's comment about the nuke, further distancing Dead Cell's motivations from Solidus. She wants Snake instead of Raiden, as she still thinks he killed her father on that tanker, much like Olga. Snake, feeling confident that he can game end her, stating that there is no such thing as a witch, opts to stay and fight her down here whilst we go on ahead. We enter into the Arsenal Gear Rectum, the Arse Rectum, Kojima, thank you. The bigger question though is this metaphysical space itself. Look at the scale of it. Where did we just climb out of? Where is the hole for the ladder? What is the floor all about? It's like a VR mission. I'm going to save you the time of answering those questions. Max Derat, one of my favorite YouTubers, actually answered it already. Remember how Raiden imagined the kernel? And this was done, as I said earlier, through nanomachines? Well, the reason I said that is because of a conversation we saw in MGS1, where Snake sees a vision of Psycho Mantis. If the Patriots are in control of his nanomachines and have managed to program them in such a way for him to imagine the kernel based on his expectations and memories, then this explains why we're seeing such a transient version of reality here. Otacon said earlier that we partially uploaded the virus to GW when EE was dying. This was when Raiden noticed the strange calls from the kernel. This also coincides with when we entered Arsenal, when we got the strange level names at the entrance door, when the floor started lighting up, and when we saw the caution hologram around the arena with the Tengus, the fish and mail ting, and now when we see this very VR influenced area that we're standing in. Our reality has been influenced by the virus. The Patriots' AI malfunctioning is causing our mind to start interfering with our perception of the world around us, and we can tell this because of how it changes. As I said, the caution sign is influenced from the game's status, the kernel from his VR training, the footprints are in the shape of the big shell. It all makes sense, and this is also potentially explaining how Psycho Mantis achieved the Hideo thing in the first game. It's all nanomachines, baby, and it's all the Patriots. How cool is that? Whilst I've been yapping, Solidus has also been yapping. He explains the S3 plan alluded to earlier by Olga stands for Solid Snake Simulation, and it's a program by the Patriots to craft a soldier in the same form as Solid Snake. All our VR training referenced to date was part of this, by the Patriots, and based on Solid Snake's Shadow Moses mission to see if they could recreate a legend and control them to do their bidding, which today was to take out Solidus. Suddenly, 3 rays come out of the distance. Behind them, we see a whole army of rays as we whip out our Stinger missile to try and do the impossible. This, however, looks like a lot more than 25. Anyway, we've done this before and we've done it well in previous games. Time to finally destroy Metal Gear Ray, no matter how many of them that there are. Apart from the quantity, the only difference to previous games now is that we're doing it as Raiden. Time to assumably prove the Patriots right, that they've created another soldier capable of doing what only previously the legendary Solid Snake could, and we have no choice but to prove them right if we want to progress in the game. This boss fight is really fun, and balancing the 3 attacks of 3 rays is a good challenge. What you'll realise is that every time one's health bar is depleted, it won't be destroyed. Another will just approach from the distance to replace it. In terms of attacks, Ray has a machine gun on one arm, a ray gun, of course, in its head, and a number of missiles it can shoot from its back. Its weak point is its face. When it opens, shove a stinger right in there for massive damage. This isn't a fight that you win by killing the boss. Kojima subverts this in MGS2. You must simply survive the onslaught until an invisible timer runs out. This is undoubtedly Raiden's greatest achievement. Has Solid Snake ever killed this many Metal Gears? No. This is the part where you're kind of like, hell yeah, go Raiden. You've been weakened mentally, physically, and doubted and disrespected throughout the entire game, but look at him go. I think the change in perception and respect of Raiden is helped also by the fact that it turns out that he was a child soldier. He was never really green. He's in fact the other end of the spectrum, a mass murderer. I know it sounds weird to say, but finding out he's always been capable of killing in real combat boosts the legitimacy of his argument to be a Solid Snake replacement, even if the acts he committed are atrocious and sad. In the following cutscene, Raiden drops to one knee after killing a serious amount of Metal Gears. Raiden is about to be squished before Olga steps in. Raiden tells her she'll die, but she reminds him that if he dies, her child will die. So her death is the only option for her child to have a chance of surviving. She's ready to make the ultimate sacrifice. Solidus puts the pieces together, also noting that she sold out her unit, who she calls family. This adds to the scale of what she's willing to do to save her child, and she notes that she knows she's going to hell for it. Olga is a true hero for this, but a tragic one. Solidus has her by the neck. She tells us that we have to live, and Solidus breaks her neck and discards her across the arena. Absolutely brutal and absolutely tragic. We have to survive this now, not only for ourselves, but for Olga and her daughter. Just as the rays were about to resume killing us, the virus starts to kick in further into GW. The control of the rays has been compromised, and that of Arsenal Gear too. Ocelot explains this to Solidus before Solidus has to take them all down himself, as we see their blue lights where their eyes were turn red, a universal sign of AI gone bad. The scene we witness of this is so badass, Solidus showing us how related he is to Snake by easily taking down the 3 rays attacking him. He then grabs us by the neck.
Daddy, chill.
As Fortune comes up with Snake in handcuffs, Fortune noting that she's captured him. However, they don't look like enemies, and Snake doesn't look too concerned, but I don't think this goes anywhere. We're now approaching the end of the game, and we have a huge amount of lore dropped on us in this final part. All I'm going to say is, before we head into the final part, thank you so much for watching, and if you've enjoyed, please like and subscribe. It means the world to me and keeps me going to create more content like this. Anyway, with that said, let's get back into it. The end of Metal Gear Solid 2. I've said this before, but it's about to get wild, with many more knicker twists to come. When we awaken, we are on top of Arsenal Gear, with Solidus standing in front of us. He chokes us out. This is before Fortune intervenes. Solidus says it's not us he wants the answers from, but assumably the Patriots, through us. One Metal Gear Ray is sat defunct next to us, with the same people in the same places as before. Remember what I said earlier about our nanomachines influencing the weird spaces around us and what we're seeing? With that final scene, GW seemed to have been fully corrupted beyond repair, as Ocelot was pointing out, and it seems to have stopped impacting our nanomachines and our perception of the world. Everyone is in their same positions, but the world now looks more real, and that huge arena now makes sense as we were sat outside on top of Arsenal Gear. Fortune is outed by Solidus. He was aware of Dead Cell's plan all along to hijack Arsenal. He orchestrated the idea through Ocelot to suggest the plan to them in the first place. He was planning to give Arsenal Gear to them all along. His main goal wasn't to get it. He thinks it's too big and requires too many people and things to protect it. His real objective was to get the list of the Patriots' names from its AI core. He says the Patriots were planning to extend their control to digital information, as we've touched on already, using GW. He says that they want to use it to filter information out of public knowledge, and by that logic, the information they want to filter out must be stored in GW. And by that logic, he thinks he'll find the names of the Patriots. He planned to go after them one by one, whilst Dead Cell drew their fire with Arsenal. This confirms that Dead Cell and Solidus, although aligned, had different motivations. Now that GW is down, does that change Solidus's plan? He says he still thinks there's a way to find the names as he looks down at Raiden. Fortune says that Dead Cell will still take Arsenal Gear, as it does still have that big ass nuke. Speaking of big, look at the size of this thing. Where were they planning to park it? How are you going to hide that? Anyway, Solidus is quite happy for Fortune to do what she wants with Arsenal, as it doesn't affect his plans at all, wishing her luck as they part ways. Ocelot starts laughing though and steps forward. Fortune asks what he finds so funny, Ocelot stating that charades are usually quite humorous. He says in a very G-Man-esque way that we're running a little short on time. Solidus asks what he's talking about, Ocelot saying that everything that has taken place in this game was scripted as an exercise by us assumably being the Patriots. He talks about the S3 plan, but he says that VR training wasn't the meat of it. He says that this whole event in the big shell and all the people involved was the real training for Raiden, the real S3 plan. An orchestrated recreation of Shadow Moses. All of the similarities that we noticed were not coincidences. They were not lazy writing. It was the whole point of the game. Kojima, you fucking dog, you've done it again.
Anyone can be shaped into Snake. Even rookies can fight like men of experience. An instant creation of genius. this training kernel would provide more than enough data to formulate such a program. You, Dead Cell, Olga, you're all nothing but pawns placed to create the perfect simulation. Solidus, you and the boy were selected because your relationship resembles the one between Snake and Big Boss. Fortune, you and the rest of Dead Cell stand in for the Foxhound squad that Snake took on in Shadow Moses. You're the most impressive collection of freaks outside of Foxhound. We've gone to a lot of trouble to set you up against the boy. That story about purified hydrogen bombs is just the tip of the iceberg. The project was already underway when I sunk that tanker, along with your old man 2 years ago. Throwing your husband in the brig was a part of it too. You were told that the eradication of Dead Cell 6 months ago was an act of the Patriots. We provoked and encouraged your hatred. And you opted for vengeance, just as we planned.
All orchestrated?
Except for the appearance of the real Solid Snake. I wonder now who sent for you.
Well, if we haven't got a clear answer all game, we do now, spelled out piece by piece. We don't have any time to ponder on this one though, as
all our misfortune was just a part of their project?
Hey, dodge that bitch. To everyone's surprise, including her own, Ocelot puts one straight into her heart, stating that she is no Lady Luck. She has nothing that the Patriots didn't give her. He says that she didn't even have any power, that she wasn't a witch or anything. She actually just had this electromagnetic weapons technology that the Patriots had developed on her. The game importantly also shows the cutscene from earlier in the tanker where Ocelot is walking towards Ray and all the guards are shooting at him but nothing's hitting. I like that they did this because I remember thinking why no one just shot him the whole time during that scene, or why no one could land a shot when they tried. It makes sense. Ocelot reconfirms that Fortune played her role perfectly. The death of her father and husband, she became a tragic slog of a human to be around, just as the Patriots needed her to be to keep Dead Cell focused on their role. I'm not sure if this was the most safe or resource/cost-effective way for the Patriots to get her to do what they wanted, but maybe that's why I'm not a Patriot myself, or am I? Side note, Fortune's just gone through a complete destruction of her whole character. In all honesty, he's not only shot her in front of everyone, but totally humiliated her. Hey, Fortune got it bad, ain't she? All cheeked up out here. Imagine being like, ooh, I'm Fortune, no one can shoot me because I'm lucky and or a witch. Then turns out you just had a little magnet box on you the whole time and you built your whole personality around it. Brutal. Once he's finished yapping, Fortune somehow manages to get to her knees and fire a shot at Ocelot, it missing. Ocelot says that he thought he got her in the heart, but now he remembers that her heart is on the right. I can't tell if this is literal at this point, and I don't care either. Should have just aimed for her head if you wanted to kill her. Ocelot is wearing the bullet bending gizmo, clearly explaining this to everyone, and Solidus is like, yeah, but my bullets are different, and then starts shooting him. Spoiler alert, they're not. He starts firing tentacle missiles at him also, which don't work either. Ocelot then yeets himself into Ray, powers it up, and preps the ray gun. Ocelot confirms that he now has enough data from this little exercise, and all he's got left to do is retrieve Arsenal and clean up the mess. Another plot well run from Ocelot and the Patriots, eh?
Oh, Colonel, we are so fucked.
Solidus whips out his swords and then does this, which is just so anime and cool, and that's that. Ocelot readies the missiles and Fortune gets up, despite being told her powers are useless, and power stances open hands in front of Ray.
You idiot!
Ocelot says,
die!
And the fireworks begin. Not a single one hits anyone. Ocelot and us are like,
any idea what the hell's going on here?
And just in case any of us thought they missed by chance, Kojima squashes that by directing Thor to bounce off of her with this silly little sound effect. Fortune, with her last breath, tells us her name, and she says she can see her family again finally. With Fortune gone, Ocelot readies another attack, but his arm starts playing up, and...
Brothers!
Well. That was a funny little graphical glitch there. Don't think I've ever noticed that before either. Anyway, the iconic Liquid Snake voice is back, and apparently he was behind this all along. Yeah, okay, this is not the series' brightest moment, let's all be honest. How many double crosses have we got now? Shit's like a heist film. Ocelot's been double crossed by his own right arm. However, at least it does have a plot point. It finally explains what Snake and Otacon were doing here. Liquid was the one who leaked the information to them in the first place. Is this the only thing the Patriots didn't anticipate? It must be, referring back to when Roy, who was the Patriots AI, kept saying that Snake wasn't part of the simulation, the only variables not considered. So that leak from Liquid can't have been known by the Patriots. Turns out Liquid wants to slap the Patriots up too, so he's going to go do that. But want to know something I don't understand? Why didn't he do this all sooner? He does mention something about needing Snake to wake him up, but I don't know. I don't care too much either. Liquid, however, is back on his bullshit, saying there's only room for one Snake and one big boss. Solidus tries some more titty tentacle missiles before Liquid heads off. Snake fucking explodes out his cuffs like the badass he is and chases Liquid down, leaping off the side into the ocean. Not gonna lie, this bit's so weird. I can't really make sense of any of the actions of Liquid, Snake, or Solidus. I don't know what happens once Snake dives into the water. Does he just start like punching the side of Metal Gear, trying to take it down by any means necessary? Anyway, with both of them out of the way now and Ocelot gone with them essentially against his will, we can have our proper ending between Solidus and Raiden. Arsenal Gear has crashed into Manhattan, into Federal Hall. Solidus finds this funny.
What are you laughing at?
Then Solidus pulls a rose on us and asks us what day it is today. It's April 30th, the day George Washington took office as the first president of the United States of America, right at this spot. How weird is that? We started at the GW Bridge, the AI is called GW, and now we're finishing at Federal Hall, where George Washington was appointed as the first president of the United States. Solidus finds this funny, as his plan, or at least his plan earlier, was to liberate Manhattan from the control of the Patriots, essentially doing a little microcosm version of what George Washington did. Meanwhile, Solidus is now playing his I'm the good guy card. He wanted to take back freedom, civil rights, and opportunities from the Patriots. He didn't want them deciding what happened in the world anymore, which is backable, right? Maybe he's not so... Oh yeah, he was a warlord and abducted Jack as a child soldier, brutally murdered Olga, and orchestrated the Shadow Moses incident. But that was to get Rex to use against the Patriots, wasn't it? Okay, maybe he's not all bad, but he has a lot of flaws. So we'll settle on that. Solidus continues to tell us we have an expiration date and that our only purpose is to pass on our genes. He references the Les Enfants Terribles project, that their ability to reproduce was conveniently engineered out. What purpose are they left with after this? He suggests that's why all of the snakes strive to make an impact in history. Solidus himself just wants to be remembered, he says. He doesn't want to be censored by the Patriots. Without that memory, he really is insignificant in the scale of history, if the Patriots get their way. But he is confident that he can win against them, and I have to say he's certainly a good match for them. His ability to orchestrate and engineer social situations is up there after what he did in this game and the last. He was essentially responsible for the events of both games, Liquid and Solid Snake both being pawns once again. We get a codec call. It's Roy, or sorry, GW. Raiden's like, "Hey yo, you're still alive?" And then we get this iconic monologue that is both horrifying and prophetic in equal measure. Oh, and Roy's a skeleton now.
To begin with, we're not what you'd call human. Over the past 200 years, a kind of consciousness formed layer by layer in the crucible of the White House. It's not unlike the way life started in the oceans 4 billion years ago. The White House was our primordial soup, a base of evolution. We are formless. We are the very discipline and morality that Americans invoke so often. How can anyone hope to eliminate us? As long as this nation exists, so will we.
Cut the crap! If you're immortal, why would you take away individual freedoms and censor the net?
Jack, don't be silly.
Don't you know that our plans have your interests, not ours, in mind?
What?
Jack, listen carefully, like a good boy.
The mapping of the human genome was completed early this century. As a result, the evolutionary log of the human race lay open to us.
We started with genetic engineering, and in the end, we succeeded in digitizing life itself.
But there are things not covered by genetic information.
What do you mean?
Human memories, ideas, culture, history.
Genes don't contain any record of human history.
Is it something that should not be passed on? Should that information be left at the mercy of nature?
We've always kept records of our lives, through words, pictures, symbols, from tablets to books.
But not all the information was inherited by later generations. A small percentage of the whole was selected and processed, then passed on. Not unlike genes, really.
That's what history is, Jack.
But in the current digitized world, trivial information is accumulating every second, preserved in all its triteness, never fading, always accessible.
Rumors about petty issues, misinterpretations, slander.
All this junk data, preserved in an unfiltered state, growing at an alarming rate.
It will only slow down social progress, reduce the rate of evolution.
Right. You seem to think that our plan is one of censorship.
Are you telling me it's not?
You're being silly. What we propose to do is not to control content, but to create context.
Create context?
The digital society furthers human flaws and selectively rewards development of convenient half-truths. Just look at the strange juxtapositions of morality around you.
Billions spent on new weapons in order to humanely murder other humans.
Rights of criminals are given more respect than the privacy of their victims.
Although there are people suffering in poverty, huge donations are made to protect endangered species. Everyone grows up being told the same thing.
Be nice to other people.
But beat out the competition.
You're special. Believe in yourself and you will succeed.
But it's obvious from the start that only a few can succeed.
You exercise your right to freedom, and this is the result. All rhetoric to avoid conflict and protect each other from hurt. The untested truths, spun by different interests, continue to churn and accumulate in the sandbox of political correctness and value systems.
Everyone withdraws into their own small gated community, afraid of a larger forum. They stay inside their little ponds, leaking whatever truth suits them into the growing cesspool of society at large.
The different cardinal truths neither clash nor mesh. No one is invalidated, but nobody is right.
Not even natural selection can take place here. The world is being engulfed in truth.
And this is the way the world ends. Not with a bang, but a whimper.
This dialogue is the reason that I wanted to do this video. Kojima predicted the future. He predicted the problems that would arise as a result of social media and freedom of information. What the Patriots plan to do is to use the AI to filter out information that comes through to the world. Like in genetics, as they say, unnecessary information will be filtered out, only passing the information that is beneficial to progressing the human race. Without that, we're at a standstill, engulfed in truth. But who decides what should be passed on? We've shown as a race that we're incapable, and without the huge amount of time, resource, and will to effectively filter through all this information to do so. So that leaves the AI, unemotionally and mathematically carving the way forward based on their own assessment of what should happen next. When we look at this idea through the lens of today, it doesn't sound too bad, does it? Playing it back in 2001, 95% of people would see this as oppression, that we should never submit to an AI to control information. It's morally wrong. We can only benefit from having the truth, right? But no, Kojima either got lucky or was incredibly accurate in his musings on the future. Now I look back and think, yeah, someone needs to fix this. We've gone from history textbooks to a post on Twitter being treated as truth. Where is the governance? Someone needs to check this. And everyone just believes what they read and hear, especially if it fits with their own beliefs. Moreover, it raises questions about our own personality and free will. How much of our beliefs and what we attribute to be defining characteristics of ourselves are taken from unfiltered and potentially untrue or harmful sources. The example given in game, where Raiden says, "I'll choose what to believe," and the AI is like, "Yeah, but Snake told you that earlier, didn't he?" Proving how easy it is to manipulate people. Or for people to adopt things they hear, a more convenient truth when your last truth turns out to be untrue or not useful. These things really don't define the self like we feel they do. So if our sense of self is derived from other things not ourself, is there a concept of self at all? Do we consider that we have a self to make us feel strong? The game asks. Lastly, it turns out Ocelot, or Liquid Ocelot, was not told the whole truth. Another double cross. S3 stands for Selection for Societal Sanity. Listen to this.
The S3 is a system for controlling human will and consciousness. S3 is not you, a soldier trained in the image of Solid Snake. It is a method, a protocol that created a circumstance that made you what you are.
So you see, we're the S3, not you.
What you experienced was the final test of its effectiveness.
That's crazy!
You heard what President Johnson said.
The Arsenal's GW system is the key to their supremacy.
The objective of this exercise was to establish such a method. We used Shadow Moses as a paradigm for the exercise.
I wonder if you would have preferred a fantasy setting.
We chose that backdrop because of its extreme circumstances. It was an optimal test for S3's crisis management capacity. If the model could trigger, control, and solve this, it would be ready for any contingency. And now, we have our proof.
Roy goes on to explain why Raiden was chosen instead of the other child soldiers to oppose Solidus in this big play. They chose him because he was the only one who chose to forget past. The rest of them cannot forget. The AI's brutally attacking him. Essentially, he's the only one that is such a coward he's willing to forget the atrocities rather than face them. A perfect subject to be manipulated by them, as he manipulates himself every day. Rose also taunts him that he avoided the truth with her too. He didn't want to address her lies to protect his own feelings. Again, a coward. Roy laughs at him during this. They say he's accepted the lies as they planned, and he's a representative of the masses that would do the same. This big shell incident was the final test of whether their S3 plan was capable of dealing with crisis, and it worked. Raiden has no choice but to stop Solidus. He initially puts up a fight, but remembers that the Patriots have Olga's child. They have all the cards here. On top of this, they say they also have Rose, and she'll die if they don't do his bidding. The Patriots really have thought of everything. An interesting detail here is that Raiden questions whether this is true. We hear Rose's voice respond. L-I-E are capitalized in the word believe. Another cool detail to add to the mindfuck that Raiden is going through. Time to fight Solidus, and the Patriots get what they want. There is no choice. I also find it really funny when for some reason it just switches to the back of Roy. Like, why is that meant to be creepy or something? I guess it kind of is. The face-off is between Solidus, the Patriots' creation, or Jack the Ripper, Solidus's creation, ultimately a reflection of two entities that have socially engineered multiple events in the series to this point. Who will come out on top? Freedom or control? I imagine the whole time we were on the phone, Solidus was just tapping his feet patiently. I mean, that was a long-ass codec call. If you think we're all out of twists, guess what? Solidus reveals that he was the one who killed Raiden's parents. Kojima, please, we've got enough to be pondering on right now. I'm literally twisted within an inch of my life trying to understand this story. We did not need any more exposition or motivations behind these characters. Just let me whoop his ass already. This solidifies, get it? That Solidus is a bad guy with good motivations. Solidus chucks us a wet and we pick it up like this. Solidus confirms that our nanomachines have traces to the Patriots. If he cracks our skull open like a juicy watermelon, he can get the information right out of it. So with that said, it's finally time to fight. This fight is pretty cool. My practice in Dark Souls and Elden Ring got me off to a great start, but as with Souls, I get thwarted by a grab attack. There was a bit of rhythm to get into in this fight, and I needed a fair few rations to get through it, mostly getting caught by his evading fire attack. His nipple missiles are easy to dodge.
Are you sure about that?
He does, however, have a second phase where he throws off his hentai tentacles. Rose and Roy call us to tell us that we are pawns and throw some more confusing information our way. Again, assuming Solidus is just waiting patiently whilst we take this call, by the way.
Hurry up!
After this, we do just that and get a sick anime cutscene to finish it. The music swells as we feel the game coming to an end on the shot of Solidus crawling at the base of the George Washington statue, a dramatic irony indeed. And if you remember, the game ends where the game starts. We started the game on the George Washington Bridge and it's ended by his statue. Raiden is teleported down to the street and people pour out to see what the commotion is all about. One of these people is Snake, and he has this to say.
There's no such thing in the world as absolute reality. Most of what they call real is actually fiction. What you think you see is only as real as your brain tells you it is.
Then, what am I supposed to believe in? What am I going to leave behind when I'm through?
We can tell other people about having faith. What we had faith in. What we found important enough to fight for. It's not whether you are right or wrong, but how much faith you are willing to have. That decides the future.
And he's right. Why obsess over the truth if nothing is absolutely true? The world we see is a reflection of light from the sun. It's not real. Right and wrong isn't what decides the future, but how much faith we put into what we believe that does. It's time for Raiden to decide what he wants his future to be. The past won't have a reflection on his legacy. We see Raiden discard the dog tags. This was the name we entered at the beginning of the game. Raiden declaring that he doesn't know them. This ends the control we as the player have over Raiden and the Patriots figuratively. Snake vows to find Olga's child. He also states that the location Ocelot was heading was a fake. Snake has the disc that Raiden thought he lost. But another twist, that one was not coded to delete the Patriots info. Only this one was. Raiden wants in on the next mission, but Snake says he has things to do first. He leaves as we see Rose appear in the street. She's real, but we know about her lie. Raiden isn't angry about this though. After all, they were both just pawns in the Patriots game. They have nothing to hate each other for really. However, I do feel like they kind of gloss over the whole betrayal. They have a nice embrace and they vow to see each other for what they are. They'll seemingly write their next chapter together. We finally get the biggest answer in the game.
I remember now. Today is the day I met you.
I like the way this is done. If Raiden is to determine his own truth in future, he'll need to take decisions like this. Is April 30th the day that George Washington became the first president, as Solidus was saying? Or is it the day that he met Rose? Both are true, and it's Raiden's decision to choose which one will define him and his future. Rose and Raiden reminisce over how they met and the legacy they want to leave while a piano plays delightfully in the background. Raiden decides that he wants to pass on his genes, although he only heard that from Solidus 5 minutes ago. I always find this so affirming of what the Patriots were saying. Snake was like, you need to decide what your truth is, and Solidus was like, it's all about passing on your genes, my boy. Then our gullible Raiden, who the Patriots picked due to his ability to forget the truth in favor of a more convenient one, decides his future is going to be about passing on his genes and teaching his offspring about the culture and information that they want to pass down too, just like he was told to. Zero original thought. I think this goes a little bit under the radar here, but I just wanted to point it out, and we end the game on a beautiful jazzy chorus as the credits roll.
I stare at the stars.
It's not over yet.
Snake, you there? It's me. I've finished going over that disc.
Did you find the Patriots list?
Of course. It contains the personal data of 12 people. There was a name on it. Snake, it was one of our biggest contributors.
What's going on around here?
I don't know.
Anyway, where are they?
Well, we were right about them being on Manhattan, but...
But what?
They're already dead. All 12 of them.
When did it happen?
Well, about 100 years ago.
What the hell?
The Patriots have been dead this whole time, apparently, but one of philanthropy's biggest contributors was a Patriot. As Snake says, what the hell is going on? Well, it turns out the Patriots who Solidus was after the whole game, they've been dead for 100 years. But this still leaves the question, who's been doing their bidding this entire time? At this point, I won't answer these questions. I'm going to answer those questions when I cover the following games in the series, but I love the way it still has questions to answer and also implies that even Snake and Otacon are under the control of the Patriots. The game does so well to set up this monumental behemoth of an antagonist group. They feel invincible, they don't even feel human, and it's implied that they can't be if they're all dead. So what's controlling everything? It's even implied that they aren't in Roy's speech. The game is a perfect sequel. It develops some stories, answers some questions, but with the idea that more will come out in the future, expertly setting the story up to be continued. So let me give you my final thoughts on Metal Gear Solid 2. After finishing this script, my brain is kind of fried. It's only when you're consciously analysing the twists and turns and details that you really keep up with just how many there are at the end. Narratively, I think the pacing was done expertly until Arsenal Gear, then it's simply a clusterfuck of reveals, double crosses and exposition. Whilst I thoroughly enjoy it all and respect the level of craft to be able to do a narrative like this, it is hard to follow, but we've seen with other games such as the Souls series that this actually helps create a community. The amount of times throughout this video that I went onto forums to ask questions only to find people have been asking the same ones and people answering it or theorizing about it was a lot. It still has its benefits and also adds to replayability. Equally, there were still a number of occasions in this playthrough that I picked up on new details, understanding things differently, which says a lot considering how old the game is and how many times I've played it. So there are pros and cons to how this is paced. Ultimately, I think this is part of the desired effects that Kojima wanted towards the end. He wants us to feel like Raiden. It's kind of the whole point that we cannot make sense of it, at least not initially. Good and bad, truth and lie, fiction and non-fiction, canon and non-canon, all blurring into a mess of misinformation. We feel like Raiden would. But aside from the pacing, this Arsenal Gear segment is the main reason the game is spoken about to this day. It's simply iconic and a monumental achievement in storytelling in gaming. Now, where I think MGS1 was better than MGS2, and again, I don't think MGS2's focus was on this time around, was the emotion. We knew what we were seeing was true. All the people, the conversations, the feelings, all true. So it was easier to tell a gripping narrative. There were less betrayals. It was more clear who was good and bad. This makes it easier to get invested and feel with the characters. As I said, MGS2 was actually, from the beginning, trying to achieve the opposite. Kojima did not want to give us safety and clarity. It wouldn't work with the point that he was trying to make. If you ask me what I prefer, I'd struggle to answer. Obviously, I want to touch on the graphics and soundtrack. Graphically, for the time, it was pretty much unmatched. A huge improvement on the first game, and the attention to detail not only in fidelity, but in features of the environment and gameplay mechanics. They struck every box that they sought out to excel in, and a huge improvement on the first game. The soundtrack this time is by Harry Gregson Williams, and it rivals the first. Again, if you want to ask me what's better in terms of OST, I won't be able to tell you. They're both astounding. MGS2 has less emotional notes, but the Yell Dead Cell song is a certified banger. The iconic theme song was uplifted and improved as well, and this can only get applause from me. Now, the characters. The characters are not as good as MGS1. They're not bad, but unfortunately there's something about the characters in MGS1 that just felt more real. Maybe it was the characters themselves, or maybe it was the voice acting and writing. They definitely felt more relatable in MGS1 too. I love every single one of them, and their motivations are realistic and justified. The story that MGS2 tells leaves a lot less room for relating to them, and I think the characters suffer because of the narrative in this game. The gameplay itself is a clear standout improvement on the first game, along with the graphics. This is what peak MGS gameplay looks like, and it's what you think of when you think tactical espionage action. I think the hardware limitations of the PS1 unfortunately limited what was possible in MGS1, but those bounds were no longer in place for this game. It was perfect. The guards searching for you, the movement, the first-person view, and leaning out from cover, it's the perfect development on what the first game set up. Overall, I've done enough to portray just how incredible this game is, I think. Brick by brick, it's almost perfection in what it's trying to achieve, but I don't need to tell you that. The fact that it's still being spoken about to this day in the way it is plenty evidence enough. I won't be touching on Snake Tales or any of the other side content in this video, but if you want me to review it, maybe I'll do it as a members video or something. To conclude, this is the most outstanding narrative I think I've ever experienced. The pace it goes at up until Arsenal Gear is near perfect, and then along with Raiden, we get our whole world destroyed in an instant and we're left feeling lost. Over time, Kojima's digital age came to life in ours, and we're now faced with the consequences of what unfiltered information at our fingertips can do. This game was a prophecy. Kojima predicted the future to stunning accuracy, and for that reason, and everything I've said so far, it will always be iconic. Thanks so much for watching, guys. My name is the Below Average Gamer. Let me know your thoughts on this incredible game down in the comments, as Metal Gear conversations are like literal crack to me. So drop a like and subscribe if you want to see me cover the rest of the video games in the series, and for more retrospective content, check out my other videos if you haven't already on Assassin's Creed and MGS1, of course. Peace.